Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto. Hyuga's is paired with Magneto ability at the beginning. Chapter 81. These days, Kakuzu's life is simple and boring. 2 o'clock and 1 line every day, 007 working system, all year round to redeem bounties. Only money can make him feel satisfied, and only money can give him a sense of security. Sometimes Kakuzu would suddenly think that unlucky guy Luo had the courage to cut off his own goods. What about the candidates for 4th generation Kage? When you heard about the fierce battle between yourself and first Hokage, why didn't you obediently give away your personal money? He's just a stubborn duck who has a tough mouth and won't admit it until he dies. Snort. 20 million taels were exchanged for 60 million taels. This wave is not a loss. Since then, Kakuzu's reputation in the underground black market has become even greater. Another title has been added. A man who impressed Luo. Kakuzu was smug. Until a few days ago, I suddenly saw the reward on the black market. 100 million taels. This is a treatment that only the cages of the 5 great ninja villages receive. Kakuzu took a closer look. Defeated Chio and Rasa, mastered the higher level magnet style, and can control all metals including gold dust. Another magnet style ninja. The magnet style level is actually higher than Luo, etc. Is there something wrong somewhere? After defeating Luo, you can control sand gold. Sao Ga. I see. It's you beast, who is teasing me. Kakuzu's eyes turned red at that time. It doesn't matter whether you want to take revenge or not, the key is 100 million taels. I, Kakuzu, am a man who fought fiercely with first Hokage, so I reluctantly accepted the 100 million taels. Just think of it as compensation for playing with me. Kakuzu set off immediately and embarked on a journey to find Hyuga Satoru. He was just a new generation kid who had just emerged. He could only defeat Luo because of his incompetent abilities. What's more, I, Kakuzu, am not even afraid of the first Hokage, so why should I be afraid of a young boy like you? Where is that Hyuga kid hiding? I haven't found it after searching for so many days. Kakuzu couldn't help but feel anxious. According to the intelligence, the other party may still be in the Konaha army. Is it possible to break into the army and take his head? Although Kakuzu is confident, he is not stupid. We can only hope for a chance encounter. When evacuating from the battlefield in the Kingdom of Rain, you might pass by here. This route should be the location with the highest probability of encountering him. Kakuzu searched everywhere, hoping to find something. Suddenly, his eyes widened. I saw a figure walking out of the forest on the opposite side, quite leisurely, as if he hadn't noticed him yet. Etc. Those eyes. Kakuzu took out the bounty notice from his pocket and checked it carefully several times. My heart is ecstatic. I, Kakuzu, am indeed a genius. I have thought of such an efficient method. Although it is a bit too coincidental, there is no doubt that it is Hyuga Satoru who is on the bounty. Kid, I didn't expect to meet you. Kakuzu sneered, and the 4 hearts behind him immediately flew out, with black threads lingering around them. See, are you the legendary ninja who once fought the first Hokage in the underground black market? HMPH. Kid, no need to pretend anymore. My eyes have seen through your plan. You must be the ninja who robbed my goods before. Do you want to delay time and find a way to escape? I, Kakuzu, have already decided on your head. The words just fell. A black silk monster behind Kakuzu suddenly opened its mouth. Fire style. Head hard. Fiery flames spit out from the mouth under the mask. Hyuga jumped back to avoid the flames. Lightning style. Hard. As if Hyuga Satoru's landing position had been calculated, another black silk monster spit out lightning style from its mouth and hit him right on the body. I was hit head on by my lightning style, and I can't move my body anymore. 100 million taels of heads, I'll just take it. Hyuga Satoru seemed to take a breath freely, his body was pulsing with lightning, and he looked very comfortable. As expected, the body made of nanometal, lightning style, has no effect at all. He sighed slightly. Kid, it seems I underestimated you. Kakuzu immediately began to take off his clothes. No one will reimburse the clothes if they are damaged. What's more, your strength can be maximized when you take off your clothes. Don't try to use your magnet style against me. I don't have any metal on me, not even this. Kakuzu was shirtless and pointed at the forehead protector on his forehead with his thumb. Only then did Hyuga Satoru discover that the forehead protector on Kakuzu's forehead had long been replaced by a white cloth strip, and the mark of Taki Ninja Village's rebel ninja was crookedly drawn with a black pen. Even if you are a rebel, are you so particular? Hyuga Satoru almost couldn't hold back his laughter. Wait a minute, you are a ninja for hire, doing things for money. I can pay you to hire you. Is that so? Are my fees very high? Do you have that much money? Kakuzu's eyes were bright and he was obviously interested. Luo Sha, you know, right? He's my brother. He gave me several tons of gold as a gift before he left. I can offer 30 million taels. 30 million taels. It's not that small. Listen to what this guy wants me to do. Once I get the money out of it, I'll do it and I'll gain both life and wealth. Kakuzu felt happy. Will you keep your promise? Are you willing to do things after receiving money? Of course, I'm a man who fought against first Hokage. As long as you give me money, I can get anyone's head for you. But let's make a deal first. 30 million taels, the market price is 1 Jonin's head, if you want me to assassinate Hokage or something. Gotta pay more. Hokage. No, my mission is very simple. Give me your own head. Question mark. Kakuzu was confused at the time. Can it still be like this? Grandma, you are playing in the underworld, right? Don't try to delay time, no one will come to save you. Kakuzu was furious, and the two black silk monsters behind him opened their mouths at the same time, one spitting out fire and the other spitting out wind. Composite ninja technique. Flame, wind and waves. Wind and fire intertwined and turned into a huge wave of fire, instantly engulfing Hyuga Satoru. Seeing this, Kakuzu suddenly felt pain in his body. He won't be burned to ashes. This is 100 million taels. So unbeatable. The sea of fire subsided, only to see Hyuga Satoru's position, with a huge metal shield spread out, burning red by the flames. The metal squirmed, and the shield turned into a fiery iron fist. Hyuga Satoru suddenly jumped up. Magnet style. Fire fist technique. The fiery red fist, wrapped in high temperature, instantly hit a black silk monster that had no time to react, and the mask exploded directly. Kid. Kakuzu's eyes were red, and his heart was so ruined. Earth style. Earth spear. The surface of the body suddenly turned black, as if wearing a layer of black silk. This is his true ability, using earth style to harden his body in exchange for powerful defense and attack power. Throwing heavy punches one after another. Oiler. Hyuga Satoru also punched back. Wood big. The fists of the two collided continuously in the air, causing sparks to fly. Until a certain point, Kakuzu withered. The black fist was red and swollen, drooping like a dog's leg. Nanomachines, boy. Hyuga Satoru dusted himself off. Kakuzu glanced at Hyuga Satoru fearfully. I know I can't fight in close combat. One's own earth-style hardening technique is not as good as the opponent's magnet-style hardening technique. Put some distance immediately. The mechanism in Hyuga Satoru's right hand rotated and turned into the shape of a cannon barrel, and the thunder light danced. Kakuzu was shocked and immediately formed a seal, slamming his hands on the ground. Earth style. Earth flow wall. Rock walls rise from the ground, facing the raging thunder and lightning. Lightning style. Trouble. My earth style will be restrained. Kakuzu frowned. But soon, Wei Wei was startled. The earth flow wall was not penetrated, and the lightning attack was blocked. It seems that your lightning style is very special. It has almost no restraining effect on earth style. Kakuzu's eyes were bright, and he seemed to have discovered a weakness in Hyuga Satoru. I feel that I am one step closer to my small goal. Hyuga Satoru couldn't help but smacked his mouth slightly. The ninja world really doesn't care about science. According to Kishimoto's setting, lightning style restrains earth style, which is the attribute conflict between chakra. But in fact, without considering moisture, only a small amount of organic matter in the soil can conduct electricity, and the resistance is very high. Otherwise, when there is thunder, when lightning hits the ground, you will burp even though you are dozens of meters away. As for the rocks made by earth style, they are even more outrageous. The main component of rock is silica, a pure insulator. Unless it is heated to a plasma state and electrons are separated from the nucleus, it is impossible to conduct electricity. Fire style restrains wind escape, but in fact, in nature, there is no absolute restraint or restraint between these two types. Combustion is a process of energy release that necessarily requires the participation of oxygen. Wind can bring oxygen, which is called combustion support. It can also temporarily isolate oxygen, which is flame retardant. Most of the abilities used by Hyuga Satoru's clone are scientific systems, and chakra is rarely involved. Sometimes, it will conflict with the mainstream cognition of the ninja world. Hyuga Satoru thought for a moment and carefully debated the pros and cons of the clone's abilities. The cannon barrel in his right hand squirmed. This time it was not a flash of lightning, but a blazing laser. The nanoparticles in the body are constantly rubbing, generating energy that is transferred to the cannon barrel in the right hand. Along with the high-pitched scream, the blazing cannonballs are fired continuously. It can barely be considered an electromagnetic gun. What is produced is high-temperature ionized plasma. The earth flow wall was shattered. Shot after shot was fired at Kakuzu. Kakuzu is angry. Hyuga brat, you pissed me off completely. Except for the water-style black silk monster that was destroyed by Hyuga Satoru. The remaining three all flew to Kakuzu's right arm, entangled with each other, and the three mask mouths were aimed at Hyuga Satoru at the same time. 3 attribute abilities explode, transform into terrifying chakra rays. On Hyuga's side, the nanoparticles in his body were vibrating at extremely high speeds, and the energy generated by mutual friction was continuously transmitted to the barrel of his right arm. Also fired back with a blazing laser. The two beams of light collided anxiously. The earth evaporated and decomposed in the terrifying waves, forming a crater-like depression. Hyuga Satoru pouted. The energy in this body was about to be exhausted. In terms of outburst, he is ultimately defeated by a veteran cage-level powerhouse like Kakuzu. Maybe next time I should stand on the right. As soon as such thoughts came up, Kakuzu's cannonball had already hit him, penetrating through his lower body. Angle gasped. There were drops of sweat running down his forehead. You little brat from Hyuga, this is what you get for looking down on me. The 3 black silk monsters squirmed and returned to the back. One of them was empty and its mask was broken. Kakuzu wanted to put on his clothes, but they were already in tatters and even if he put them on, he would be naked. I didn't expect that even my coat was broken. The last time I had such a passionate fight was with the ninja named Senju Hashirama. HMPH. Hyuga brat, I'll take your head. Kakuzu walked towards Hyuga Satoru and saw that the lower half of Hyuga Satoru, who had been hit by his ultimate move, was missing. No bleeding. It seems like it was evaporated directly by the high temperature. Kakuzu cut off Hyuga Satoru's head neatly and weighed it several times. Very satisfied. As expected of a head worth 100 million taels, it's quite heavy. He left satisfied, planned to redeem the bounty. Not long after, the headless corpse with only half left on the ground started to squirm. Silver magnetic fluid continuously flows out from the earth and condenses on that body. Hyuga Satoru twisted his neck. To be honest, if it weren't for the sake of evolution, I would have wanted to transform my entire body. The ability of the clone is too practical. As long as the core is not destroyed, it will not die at all. With the disappearance of body parts, the magnetic fluid assembly can be completely disassembled. Even if you encounter a fatal blow, you can completely disintegrate the core and integrate it into the ground, and wait until there is no one to regroup. It's much more practical than Kakuzu's bullshit immortality. As for the more precious magnetic fluids like the beheading sword magnetic fluid, they can be melted into the ground first and replaced with other metallic magnetic fluids. Or wait for the main body to be replenished. Most of the steps have been completed, and only the last bit of wool is left. The battle with Kakuzu is mainly to test the clone's strength. If the film level is divided into 3 levels, elementary, intermediate and advanced. A fledgling cage like Luo Sha is considered a beginner at best, and his overall strength is probably between intermediate and advanced. For example, the 3rd Tsuchikage has unreasonable dust, or the 3rd Raikage can beat up 8 tails, both are considered advanced. Especially the dust style, which can decompose objects into atoms indiscriminately. According to Hyuga Satoru's conception, this is the ability of atomic-level electromagnetic force. Even if he received a steady hit, he would be cold. This clone's overall strength should have barely reached the shadow level. Mainly the body made of magnetic fluid and the immortality attribute add too many points. Magnet style. The ultimate transformation technique. Hyuga Satoru's body began to squirm, and he actually turned into Kakuzu, holding one of his own heads in his hand. Magnetic fluid can be transformed into any shape, and it is simply impossible to combine it with the transformation technique. One imitates the appearance and the other changes the texture. As for the weight, there is no problem as long as you calculate it in advance. One doesn't seem to be enough. Well, you only have one chance, so be patient. The body begins to split, splitting down the middle into 4 Kakuzu. He ran towards the largest underground black market nearby. As long as he sticks to the time, he can get ahead of Kakuzu. No, it's just before the black market reacts. Bang! The door to the underground black market was pushed open violently. A tall figure wearing a black robe walked in, walking like a stranger, holding a human head in his hand. Domineering leak detection. This decoration, this momentum, could it be the legendary gentleman? That's him. Absolutely right. I've seen him from a distance before. The man who fought against the first Hokage and impressed Luo Shido, Kakuzu-sama. The person in charge of the black market greeted him with a smile. Oh my, I didn't expect Master Kakuzu to be here. Has Master gained anything recently? Kakuzu placed the head in his hand on the table. Hiss. In an instant, everyone around him took a deep breath. Could this be the famous double-blooded ninja who defeated Rasa and Konaha Hyuga recently? HMPH. He's just a little guy who can't stand on the stage, and he can bully a loser like Rasa. He's far behind Senju Hashirama. Kakuzu-sama, please let me check. The person in charge checked in surprise. Kakuzu sneered inwardly. No one knows my head better than me. Ever since the first time he and Aburame Jawei went out on a mission alone, they had been hanging out in the black market, and even found a silver-faced Shira vest. He knew very well the inspection methods of the black market. The white eyes seem to have been destroyed, and there is no problem with the imprint of the caged bird, and the other data are also consistent. It's indeed his head. Hearing the words of the person in charge, the surrounding bounty hunters were filled with shock and admiration. Things like, he is worthy of being the man who fought fiercely in the first Hokage, Kakuzu-sama is going to become famous in the ninja world again, my magnet style is just that. Satisfied, Kakuzu carried 2 large boxes of banknotes and walked out amidst the adoration and admiration of everyone. Such a scene also happened in the 3 surrounding black markets at the same time. But because the times were almost exactly the same, no one noticed anything unusual. Until the person in charge decided to take a closer look at Hyuga Satoru's head, he was stunned. My head feels hot. Why doesn't my head feel hot? Kakuzu, you beast. At the same time, Kakuzu is still on his way to black market number 3. Angry. Hyuga brat. How dare you lie to me, Kakuzu? Don't let me catch you. Halfway through the journey, I found that the head in my hand suddenly disappeared. Physics. Kakuzu was very angry and the consequences were serious. I immediately ran back to look for the young man who had no martial ethics and found that he was gone. Kakuzu knew he was being played. After working so hard, I didn't even get a hair. He had no choice but to return to the black market angrily, preparing to vent his anger by grabbing the heads of a few unlucky people. As soon as he entered the black market, he found that the ninjas around him were whispering and looking at him in shock. HMPH. Are you intimidated by my reputation? I am a man who has fought fiercely with the first Hokage. Don't let me Kakuzu catch that Hyuga brat who has no martial ethics. When he opened the door, he saw that the person in charge's eyes were red and he was pointing at himself. The spittle flies. Kakuzu, you actually have the nerve to come back. Zinema, refund the money. My good brother Luo Sha gave me 300 taels of gold as a gift. The good guy Kakuzu will give you a bounty of 400 million ryo. A portion of miscellaneous magnetic fluid. After returning to Konaha, Hyuga Satoru counted the benefits gained during this period and suddenly smiled with satisfaction. We are also people with many billions of dollars. At least for a long time, you don't have to worry about money anymore. There are still many good people in this world. Hyuga Satoru couldn't help but sigh. The reason why we can play with Kakuzu and the Bounty Club so easily is because we benefit from poor information. He knows the operation mode of the Bounty Club very well and also understands Kakuzu's character. The wool can only be collected once, and this time Kakuzu took the blame for him. If the same routine is played again, everyone will feel wrong. With so much startup capital, the construction of the laboratory can begin. The laboratory he used before was Orochimaru's unused one. After all, it is not your own, and the concealment is not very good. Doing some secret research always feels like your hands are tied. If you build your own laboratory, there will be no problems. The reincarnation eye plan and the caged bird transformation experiment can all be launched. For the caged bird, Hyuga Satoru's plan is to transform it, retain the protective Byakugan effect, and remove the control effect. Hyuga Satoru's eyes turned cold. When this war is over, the family transformation will begin immediately. The reason why he chose the end of the war is because if he initiates changes now, it will inevitably cause Konaha internal and external troubles. Now is the time of war, maybe Sarutobi and Danzo will regard him as a factor of instability. After all, it would be nice to know that you are now free from the shackles of a caged bird. The Hokage's attitude towards himself will definitely change. This is equivalent to a sharp knife losing its restraint. At that time, there may be only one way to defect. After the end of World War III, it is a very delicate time. Konaha is in dire straits, its strength has been greatly reduced after the war, and it can no longer withstand internal fighting. There is a great possibility that Hiruzen Sarutobi would choose to tolerate it and accept a brand new Hyuga. That's what you want. What he wants is change, not defection. Taking a deep breath, Hyuga Satoru began to analyze the current war situation. Sand Shinobi has been completely defeated. Not surprisingly, they will need to rest and recuperate for the next 10 years to make up for the losses of this defeat. Currently, Konoha's biggest enemies are Iwa Ninja and Kumo Ninja. The two major ninja villages are the strongest ninja villages except Konaha. Due to territorial reasons, the most aggressive one at present is the Iwagakure village, which is only separated by the country of grass. Before the war broke out, Hyuga Satoru killed the opponent's advanced troops in the country of grass. Although Union Village is domineering, it is too far away from the country of fire, separated by several countries. The battlefield is also far away and cannot be affected here for the time being. Not surprisingly, Hokage will also mobilize him to the Iwa Ninja battlefield this time. On the Kurigakure side, the current movement is not particularly big. Many ninjas from the Uchiha clan have been transferred to the Kurigakure battlefield. Hyuga Satoru guessed that it might be for the sake of balance. Uchiha is not like Hyuga, it is too difficult to control. Falling into a remote battlefield can suppress the opponent's military exploits, and even if you make any outstanding contributions, it will be difficult to publicize them. The famous Shunshin Shisui in the original work is only occasionally heard in the village. Compared with Minato Jiraiya, his reputation is much weaker. Sure enough, in the afternoon, Hyuga Satoru received the transfer order. Support the Iwa Ninja battlefield with a large force. Before leaving, he went to eat a bowl of Ichiraku ramen. Chewing in small mouthfuls, enjoying the hard-won tranquility. No matter how hot it is outside, this small Ichiraku noodle house never stops selling ramen. It's like another world. Hyuga Satoru feels more and more that the rumors about Otsutsuki Ichiraku are true. I was wondering whether I should secretly take the smiling uncle in front of me back to study it. So can his daughter. Suddenly a voice of surprise sounded in my ears. It's Satoru. I didn't expect to see you here. Look back. It's Mecha. Jung was sweating profusely and panting and sat down next to him. Kai, didn't you go to support? I went, I just came back yesterday. I didn't want to waste time, I practiced for a while. Woo, you don't mind, right? Kai gulped down the ramen that was served to him. He pointed at his sweaty clothes. It doesn't matter. Hyuga Satoru shrugged. Honestly, I really can't imagine that you are so powerful, Satoru. Mecha swallowed the ramen in his mouth and looked at Hyuga Satoru with a hint of shock. On the battlefield over there, many of our companions at the same time have been killed or injured, but you, Satoru, there are rumors that you even defeated the 4th generation Case Cage. Is that true? That's right. His ability was just restrained by me. Mecha suddenly fell silent. Freak. Obviously everyone graduated at the same time, why are you so unscientific? Even K's cage. Looks like I haven't worked hard enough. After finishing this bowl of noodles, I'm going to run 50 laps around the playground while standing on my head. Kai seemed to have been given a shot of chicken blood as he took big mouthfuls of ramen noodles. Hyuga Satoru was originally going to say that exercising after meals would make you bloated, but seeing Kai's excited look on his face, he swallowed his words. That's right, Satoru. Kai seemed to have remembered something, and suddenly put his face to Hyuga Satoru's ear with a serious look on his face, and asked solemnly. Is there really such a thing as magnet style? This kind of problem? Just thinking about it. Speechless. Yes, it is indeed the male magnet style that I awakened. Hyuga Satoru looked at him seriously. Hiss. Kai took a deep breath. Sure enough, I said Satoru's magnet style is not that simple. Immediately, he stopped worrying and started eating with his head down. Hyuga Satoru started to think. The magnet style ability he displayed in this war was too terrifying, and the regular magnet style was simply completely defeated. I have indeed heard a lot of rumors discussing his magnet style recently. Do you want to make an official decision yourself? Saved so many ninja arguments. What should I call it? The public magnet style seems not domineering enough, while the electric magnet style is very straightforward, but too straightforward. Does it belong to the limit of blood inheritance? Or is it eliminated by blood inheritance? Why don't we just bury the blood and forget about it? Save so much trouble. Satoru, are you going to the Iwa Ninja battlefield? Kai suddenly asked. Yes, what's wrong? Kakashi is there too. Kai suddenly sighed. But he has changed so much that I can hardly recognize him anymore. Since being defeated by Hyuga Satoru in public last time, Kakashi seems to have become a different person. Although his personality is no longer so extreme, his isolation seems to be more serious. Several times, he wanted to talk, but the other party ignored him. Really, it's all those rumors. Kakashi is not a crybaby. He didn't even kneel down and beg for mercy from Hyuga Satoru. I don't know who spread the news first. Kai thought fiercely. Hyuga Satoru's thoughts gradually jumped away, and his brows couldn't help but frown slightly. Has Kakashi changed a lot? I haven't heard any rumors about him since I defeated him in public last time. It seemed that his participation had caused some unexpected changes in him. Interesting. Obito is also in the Iwa Ninja battlefield, right? The future boss behind the scenes. Hyuga Satoru suddenly felt that it would be interesting to support the Iwa Ninja battlefield this time. In the afternoon, the large troops returning from Konaha began to support the Iwa Ninja battlefield. Head to the Kingdom of Grass in a mighty way. It's different from last time. This time, Hyuga Satoru almost just arrived at the scene, and he attracted countless pairs of eyes, with shock and an indescribable expression. As that, the Hyuga Satoru who defeated Rasa. He looks so young. The first double bloodstain of the Hyuga clan, the second bloodstain that surpasses the ordinary magnet style. I heard it is called male magnet style. It just tastes a bit. Some ninjas suddenly thought of Chiyo's tragic situation and shuddered. There was also a hint of awe in the eyes looking at Hyuga Satoru. Satoru, are you late again? Do I have a habit of arriving early? Hyuga Satoru rolled his eyes and looked at Uchiha Rin with his arms crossed in front of him. Being late is not because he likes to be late. Basically, he will use it to gain experience whenever he has time. After all, LV4's electromagnetic force is not invincible. However, the further you go up, the more difficult it becomes to obtain experience points. During a war, it is naturally impossible to use multiple shadow clones on a large scale that will wither for several days. Results are slow, but mosquito legs are also meat. Hyuga Satoru has always been a diligent, thrifty and good family man. Turning his eyes, Hyuga Satoru raised the corner of his mouth in an arc. He saw an old acquaintance. Aburame Shiwei is having a business conflict with Minato Namikaze. Look at it this way, this is the first time Class 3 is reunited since they were separated last time. Minato, the 7th team you lead are all very talented, especially Kakashi. It seems he is about to become a Jonin, right? That's ridiculous. The 3rd team you led are the real geniuses. Minato smiled. Aburame Shiwei was a little older than Minato. The two of them were at the same time, and both were quite famous ninjas in Konaha. Encountering him by chance in the army would naturally result in a commercial nonsense. Minato seemed to have thought of something, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he said excitedly. Especially Satoru. His move, the Armstrong Cyclone Jet space-based super electromagnetic force cannon, the invincible Armstrong cannon, is simply too powerful, especially the name. Ah, what's going on? I can't remember it. Hyuga Satoru's name is so unique. Why don't I know? Aburame Shiwei looked strange. It's Armstrong's Cyclone Jet, Minato repeated happily. I didn't expect Satoru to have such good taste in naming. He's almost as good as my magnet-style Nimbus Hayate Thunder Ya-Zero style. Shiwei, your teachings are amazing. The surrounding ninjas looked at him strangely. Aburame Shiwei dug out the 3 rooms and 1 living room with his toes in embarrassment. I kept asking myself, why did I bring up this topic with Minato? He already had a slight social fear, but when so many people looked at him strangely, he suddenly felt as if all his clothes had been stripped off. Behind him, Hyuga swallowed. Is this social death? Brother, I just said random things, but did you write it down word for word? I originally planned to go up and say hello to Teacher Shiwei. Hyuga Satoru retreated silently, fearing that the other party would discover him. Satoru, it's so long. Uchiha Rin looked at Hyuga Satoru with a hint of shock. What's so long? Name. Did you really get it? Hyuga Satoru's scalp was numb and he quickly changed the subject. Rin, did you encounter anything when you returned to the family this time? What happened? Uchiha thought for a while. It really happened. With a hint of hesitation. But the elder asked me not to tell you. Question mark. What's the matter? Hyuga Satoru's heart tightened. Uchiha glanced at Hyuga Satoru, his cheeks suddenly turned red, and he lowered his head slightly. Elder Setsuna said, let me try to get closer to you. Elder Setsuna, Hyuga Satoru was silent. It seems that the famous Hawk Elder, who has survived from Madara's time to this day, is trying his best to build an Uchiha Hokage. This old guy should know how to open Mangekyo's eyes. Want to kill me to sacrifice to heaven. Rin, since he didn't let you tell me, why did you say it anyway? Who is he? Why should he teach me how to do things? Uchiha Rin crossed his arms and rolled his eyes at Hyuga Satoru in the way he was accustomed to. Well, okay, this is cool. Hyuga Satoru stopped talking. Suddenly a voice of surprise emerged from the crowd. It's Satoru. Why don't you come to say hello when you're so close? Namikaze Minato excitedly moved towards Hyuga Satoru. Hyuga Satoru saw the slightly resentful look in Aburame's eyes next to him, and was so embarrassed that he almost asked for a sea view room. Well, what about the imaginary touching scene of the third team's reunion? Hateful. Minato, you return my emotion. The land of grass. Konaha camp. A large supporting force arrived, and many ninjas came out of the camp to greet them. Hyuga Satoru saw Team 7 led by Minato. Obito stood at the front and kept waving and shouting excitedly. Minato-sensei, here, because Namikaze Minato was sent to the Sand Shinobi battlefield to shoot Sand Shinobi with Hyuga Satoru, Team 7, who was in the Iwa Ninja battlefield, had been in a state of free range. Hyuga Satoru saw Kakashi standing behind him, leaning slightly sideways and out of place with his surroundings. Even Obito's excited shouts didn't change anything in him. It's like being in a different world than the ninjas who came to greet you. Hyuga Satoru noticed that the other party was staring at him. It's not the kind of gaze that stays accidentally, but the kind of clear gaze that's been watching me. He saw Kakashi's eyes, and the two looked at each other. As Kai said, Kakashi has changed a lot. Hyuga Satoru sighed secretly in his heart. It seemed that his participation had caused some unexpected changes in him. Also, in the original work, Kakashi seemed to have turned dark after White Fang committed suicide, crushing all of Konoha's genius records. It wasn't until he got together with Obito Kai later that he gradually became clear. But now, the title of number 1 among the new generation is gone. Defeated by himself in public. Even because of the crying later, some strange rumors have been circulating in the village. Hyuga Satoru doesn't know which direction Kakashi is changing. It seems that it has changed from one kind of blackness to another. After returning to the assigned camp, I didn't stay long when I heard a knock on the door. Hyuga Satoru fights the gate of opening. Sure enough, it was Kakashi. You don't seem surprised. There was no emotion in Kakashi's voice. No, in other words, he is like an emotionless machine. Even emotions. I guessed it, so it's not surprising. Come in. Hyuga Satoru motioned for Kakashi to sit down. He groaned. Actually, I'm a little curious. You never seem to clarify those outrageous rumors in the village. It seems that the title of son of Kakashi White Fang comes with huge traffic. Ever since he was defeated by him in public last time, some outrageous rumors have been circulating in the village. Something a little better, like something. Shocked, the son of White Fang was defeated by Hyuga Satoru, but he did that in public. Kakashi knelt down and begged for mercy. Is the son of White Fang in vain? The more outrageous thing is, Kakashi cried in public, the 100 things he and Hyuga Satoru had to say. The son of White Fang and the genius with white eyes, who betrayed whom? Outrageous to outrageous gate of opening. Hyuga Satoru couldn't complain. I don't think you care about those boring rumors. Kakashi sneered. It's just some people who like to chew nonsense for their own entertainment. That kind of boring stuff. Do you want him to roar in public? Kakashi, did not kneel down. I came here to ask you something. His eyes suddenly became serious and he stared straight at Hyuga Satoru. Kakashi said solemnly, you said that my father died trying to interpret his will. What was his will? Kakashi just stared at Hyuga Satoru, seemingly eager for his answer. It turns out that you have been thinking about this problem. Hyuga Satoru suddenly chuckled. Your theoretical scores have always been very good since you were a student. I think you should be familiar with the will of fire. Hyuga Satoru just looked at him directly with a faint smile. Of course, the will of fire was passed down from the first Hokage when the village was built, and it is the link that maintains the village and the villagers. So, what do you think led Mr. Tsukumo to commit suicide in the end? Or, after thinking about it for so long, have you come to some conclusions? Kakashi didn't expect that Hyuga Satoru didn't answer his question directly, but started to ask rhetorical questions. After a slight pause, the way of temptation, is it because of the priority between companions and tasks? For a long time after his father's death, he struggled with whether the mission or his companions were more important. In the end, I came to the conclusion that I couldn't even complete the task and was just a waste. This conclusion directly affected his thinking in dealing with things, and was also the reason why his reputation in the village was so bad. That's just the appearance, Hyuga Satoru said calmly. Do you think a ninja like Tsukumo-sama would commit suicide over such a superficial question? Kakashi was silent. Indeed, this issue may be quite complicated for someone of his age. But for his father, the ninja who was respected by countless people as the White Fang, would actually choose to commit suicide because of such a problem. It's really unconvincing. So what exactly? You said so yourself. Hyuga gave him a blank look. The will of fire is the link between the village and the villagers. So Tsukumo-sama gave up the mission to protect his companions and the villagers. Doesn't this just explain the will of fire? Yes. Isn't it true that the father who chooses to protect his companions is what the will of fire advocates? Wherever the leaves are flying, the fire is endless. The light of the fire will illuminate the village and cause new leaves to sprout. But why, the ninjas and villagers who inherited the will of fire would treat his father like that? Even the ninjas he rescued. Kakashi felt that his brain was congested and he couldn't figure it out no matter how much he thought about it. Haven't you figured it out yet? Hyuga Satoru rolled his eyes again. The one who killed Tsukumo-senpai was the will of fire they talked about. Impossible, absolutely impossible, Kakashi retorted subconsciously. The will of fire has been deeply rooted in his mind through years of brainwashing and education. When I heard that Hyuga Satoru slandered will of fire, his first reaction was to refute. Since the will of fire teaches ninjas to protect their companions and the village, it doesn't make sense that Tsukumo-senpai, who has implemented the will of fire, should be treated like that, right? There is only one truth. The will of fire is wrong. It was wrong from the beginning. It's just a trick played by those above to maintain their rule. Every word Hyuga Satoru said was like a heavy hammer, constantly hitting Kakashi's fragile mind, which was already standing on the edge of the cliff. Maybe it's because of my father's choice that it caused a lot of losses to the village. He opened his mouth bitterly, his voice hoarse. Want to fight back Hyuga Satoru. Loss. Hyuga Satoru almost burst out laughing. Just looking at Kakashi coldly. What loss? Was it the loss of important information? Or was it the village suffering huge property losses? Or what about the fabrications of those people above? Kakashi felt like he was about to burst. His mouth was open in a daze. The last difficult counterattack was ruthlessly destroyed. Yeah, how did I ignore this? Loss. What loss? From the beginning, the rumors only mentioned huge losses, but what exactly were they? No one can tell clearly. Even my father himself never told me what the loss was. Just relying on a groundless rumor. Hateful. At some point, Kakashi's teeth were clenched tightly, and tears were falling from his eyes. Father, are you wrongly accused? Why? Such thoughts kept popping up in his mind. Wake up, Kakashi, I don't want you to make such mistakes again. Hyuga Satoru suddenly let out a long sigh. The will of fire has been a tool to maintain rule from the beginning. How to explain and define it is all in the hands of the people above. Looking at Kakashi with tears streaming down his face, Hyuga couldn't help but click his tongue a few times in his heart. Poor baby. Born in the world's largest MLM brainwashing center, she received brainwashing education from an early age. Her father, whom she respected, was forced to death by the third-generation leader of the MLM organization and his men. Awful. But, why? Why do they treat my father like this? My father obviously wants to. Kakashi burst into tears, choked with sobs, and asked. You said it yourself, who doesn't know the name of White Fang, Tsukumo-senpai? If nothing else, he must be the fourth Hokage. This status has already determined his tragedy. This is politics, child. Hyuga Satoru ruthlessly tore apart Kakashi's last fig leaf. Political struggle. Kakashi staggered a few times, as if all his strength had been drained away. What is the will of the father? He has understood that his father is just a victim of the power struggle. Fight silently with your own death. That father who loves to laugh turns out to have been suffering from such pain. I see. It took him a long time to calm down his turbulent emotions. Gently wipe the tears from your face. The eyes are deep, and there seems to be something in the pupils, like dark holes. Without any emotion, he bowed slightly to Hyuga Satoru. Thank you for making me realize the truth of this world. The voice was as cold as a machine. Not a trace of emotion. Hyuga glanced at him and said calmly. I don't know what you plan to do. Revenge, or leave, but I want to remind you not to be blinded by impulse. I see. Kakashi spoke calmly. He turned around and walked straight outside the tent. He is different from when he came here. It seems that I have lost my soul. Hyuga Satoru looked at his back indifferently. Poor baby. Feel the pain, experience the pain, accept the pain. If you have not experienced pain, you will not see the face of this ugly world. Then, surrender at my feet. Kakashi, don't blame me. Only by facing pain can people grow. Hyuga Satoru sighed secretly in his heart. Most people in the ninja world are a little twisted and have some strange concepts. Hitaki Tsukumo was too strong. Didn't he see what the higher-ups were thinking? Hyuga Satoru didn't believe it. Perhaps it was because he saw that the belief he had always adhered to collapsed in the cruel reality, so he committed suicide. Use death to interpret your own will. Fighting silently. Kakashi looks like a 2B boy who has not been severely beaten by society. He is careless, has blind eyes, and talks about all kinds of truths that he has misunderstood. Just give him a good beating. Recognize the reality and know the truth. Just grew up. Kakashi, don't blame me. This is the only way to become an adult from a child. After all, he is one of the best talents in the original series, the future 6th Hokage. With such a talent, Hyuga Satoru is not going to give up. Hyuga Satoru thought about those people in high positions again and narrowed his eyes slightly. Many people in the village have compared him with the young White Fang, but he is even better. Those high-ranking guys may also have some crooked ideas, right? When the Hyuga clan is incorporated, I am afraid that I will have to deal with that group of people. But, Kakashi should have become someone on my side. Under his own guidance. It was like a sharp knife thrust straight into the hearts of those sanctimonious high-level officials. Konaha Tent, the largest main account. Hyuga Satoru looked at the senior officials around him and found that they were also looking at him at the same time. Different from last time it was because of Orochimaru that he was allowed to enter the command camp. Now, Sand Shinobi's battlefield performance has secured his position, and there is nothing wrong with being in the same room as the top management. Looking at his eyes, there was surprise, shock, complexity, and weirdness. Hyuga Satoru is too young. It is really unimaginable for them to have such a terrifying record at this age. The genius of the previous era, Hitaki Sakumo, is at this age. Just defeated a few Jonin. And Hyuga Satoru has defeated the 4th generation Kazekage. It's simply a fantasy. But many rumors forced them to accept this fact. In the previous war with the Iwa Ninja, our side has always been at a disadvantage. The reason is that the strength of the village is too scattered and we cannot concentrate on dealing with the Iwa Ninja. Unlike the Sand Shinobi battlefield, the commander on the Iwa Ninja battlefield is Jiraiya. He was analyzing the situation in a deep voice. Although the Third War was a chaotic war, basically every village's power was concentrated on dealing with Konaha. The wars between other villages were much smaller in scale. This also led to the fact that although Konaha was the most powerful ninja village, the manpower in each battlefield was a bit stretched. Satoru, do you want to use that move? As long as we join forces. Beside the long table, Namikaze Minato was a little excited and looked at Hyuga Satoru with bright eyes. He couldn't wait any longer. As long as they continue to work together, there is a chance to convince Hyuga Satoru to accept his name. In just a few days, he came up with several wonderful names. There is no way he will lose to Satoru's Armstrong. He thought excitedly. Sensing the strange looks from around him, Hyuga Satoru awkwardly dug his toes into the 5 generations house. What a handsome guy, but he has a big mouth. Ah, Minato, I'm afraid it won't work this time. Jiraiya couldn't help but said. Namikaze Minato is his disciple, and he knows his character very well. Although he is reliable most of the time, he will show strong interest once he encounters something he likes. Although the bow and arrow ninjutsu with a range of more than 3 kilometers is very scary, it may be difficult to be effective this time. Sunagakur village seems to have sold all of Satoru's information on the black market. Iwagakure village has undoubtedly made preparations in advance. If we repeat the old trick, we might encounter a trap set by the other party. Jiraiya glanced at Hyuga Satoru, feeling helpless. Maybe the death incident of Takamura in Sunagakur village was too tragic. In order to avoid this situation, Iwagakure village. At present, it is difficult to find clear senior leaders in the army. According to the current intelligence, all high-level officials live in the same camp, completely mixed with ordinary Iwa ninjas, making it difficult to tell them apart. Even meetings are held remotely with the help of sensing ninja. Afraid of being peeped by someone's eyes, a big sniper shot was sent over. I learned that Hyuga Satoru was transferred to the Iwa ninja battlefield. Onoki convinced the top management overnight. Move almost all the village's scouts and sensory ninjas to this battlefield. The range of scouting and sensing barriers is extremely wide, already exceeding 3 kilometers. The defense against Hyuga Satoru has reached the extreme. In this case, if you continue to use Hyuga Satoru and Minato's old 6 tactics, it will be a bit more gain than loss. Jiraiya naturally understood this deeply. At the same time, I was also shocked. Hyuga Satoru is so intimidating. Just after arriving at the Iwa Ninja battlefield, the information was just learned by the Iwa Ninja. The style of war began to look different. I heard that the current Iwa Ninja camp is extremely quiet at night, and there are no ninjas who even go out to use the toilet at night. Next, Jiraiya issued several orders regarding the deployment of troops. It had been a long time since the last major battle. His eyes were serious. If nothing happens, the war may break out soon. Sure enough, after a short period of calm. It was probably the 4th day after Hyuga Satoru arrived. Konaha scouts discovered signs of a massive Iwa Nin attack. Jiraiya ordered in a deep voice. The war is about to break out. The terrain of the country of grass is complex and changeable, but most of the terrain is dominated by grasslands and forests. The main battlefield between Konaha and Iwa Ninja was also on an open grassland. Visible to the naked eye, on the green field, two huge torrents were approaching each other rapidly. As he approached, Hyuga Satoru almost burst into laughter when he saw the decoration of the Iwa ninja opposite. He finally understood what Jiraiya's weird look in his eyes meant before the battle started. I saw the roaring group of rock ninjas. Many of the clothes he wore were animal skin armor, which tightly wrapped his body. The forehead protector on his forehead was also replaced with a strip of cloth with the pattern of Iwa Ninja Village painted on it. Some even use white cloth. Uneven, flying in the wind. The surrounding Konaha ninjas seemed to have been prepared, and there were not many changes in their expressions. When the two large armies were approaching, kunai, shuriken, and ninjutsu of all types smashed into each other overwhelmingly. Hyuga Satoru saw the kunai thrown by the ninjas. Many of them were polished stones, and some were even made of wood or bones. Such a picture gave Hyuga Satoru a twisted sense of unreality. The rugged man wearing animal skins kept throwing away the rocks and wood in his hands. Have I traveled back to primitive times? Among the Iwa ninja troops, Commander Wangtu gritted his teeth slightly. Although he also knew that these temporarily purchased and manufactured equipment were too rough. But there is no other way. Hyuga Satoru Magnet Style's threat is too great. It can be said that most of the reasons for the failure of Sunagakur village are due to Hyuga Satoru. Metal, no matter it is any metal, will become his weapon. They can only give up products containing metal. Conventional ninja clothing cannot be without metal. In order to improve the protective effect, many ninja clothing are sewn with iron plates or armor. Metal materials will also be used for clothing links. In this case, if you want to have both protective effect and no metal, you can only use thick animal skins. It is absolutely impossible to throw away prepared weapons such as kunai and shuriken. Only a very small number of ninjas know ninjutsu. Whether it's a sneak attack or a last-ditch hit at a critical moment, shuriken plays an irreplaceable role. There are lessons learned from Sunagakur village. They can only look for large quantities of metal substitutes. Due to the large number, many of them can only be made by Iwa Ninja himself. The roughness can be imagined. Lois hated it so much that his teeth itched. Just to guard against that Hyuga Satoru. They were actually asked to pay such a high price. No matter what, this trouble must be solved in this war. This was not only his idea, but also Tsuchikage Onoki's order. Otherwise, the industrial level of Iwagakure village may be set back by several decades. Because Onoki was extremely wary of Hyuga Satoru. The Iwa ninjas who participated in the battle were rarely equipped with any metal products, so Hyuga Satoru wanted to recreate the unique skills of the six in the Sand Shinobi battlefield. It's going to be a lot of trouble. But it's just trouble. Konaha's ninjas are equipped with metal kunai. Hyuga Satoru controlled a large number of kunai thrown by the Konaha ninjas, with precise remote control, as if he opened his eyes, and penetrated the Iwa ninjas' vitals just right. Incredible skills, true swordsmanship. The Konaha ninja's eyelids jumped. This ability is so terrifying. Fortunately he is a ninja from Konaha. Otherwise, after the Iwa ninja discovered the abnormality, the ninjas in the front row formed seals one after another, and huge earth walls rose from the ground. Useless. The kunai can turn corners, cross the earth wall, and easily wipe out the throat of the Iwa nin behind it. A fresh trick that can be eaten all over the world. Hyuga Satoru pouted. Although the efficiency is much worse, it is almost impossible to recreate the battlefield of Sand Shinobi by one person and a team, but it is still quite powerful. Hyuga Satoru will target the rock ninja above Chunin and select valuable targets. Precise strike. In theory, bone or wood kunai can also be controlled. But first, you have to use electromagnetic force to magnetize it, which is thankless and not as powerful as metal. Not directly controlling Konaha's kunai saves time and effort. Seeing this, Iwa Ninja gritted his teeth and quickly formed seals. Earth style. Rock armor jutsu. Densely packed rocks grew from the body, covering all the skin in an instant, and the body grew much taller, looking like a rock giant. Rock armor technique is an upgraded version of rock fist technique. Ordinary rock fist techniques can only make one's arms wrapped in rocks. But ninjas who have been immersed in this art for many years can rely on their exquisite chakra control to make their entire bodies wrapped in rocks. The speed will be slower, but the defense strength and size will be greatly improved. These rock ninjas wrapped in rocks immediately came to the front and formed a wall of human flesh, using their bodies to block the attacks of metal ninja tools. The kunai shot onto the body, making a dull metal collision sound, and a piece of rock was shattered. Chakra flows, and growing rocks bridge the gap. Even the eyes are protected by rocks protruding outward to prevent them from being inserted into the eyes. Although it was humiliating to be treated as a wall of human flesh, these elite rock ninjas had nothing to do. In order to guard against Hyuga Satoru's ability, Tsuchikage Onoki set up several layers of protection. If one of them failed, he would replace it with the next one. This is the most efficient way to reduce losses. Hyuga Satoru couldn't help but sigh slightly. Onoki is worthy of being the oldest Tsuchikage in the world. In terms of experience, he is far from being comparable to the fledgling Kazekage of Rasa. The ninjas that remain from the Uchiha Madara era are indeed not that simple. At the same time, I couldn't help but sneer. The style of this war is becoming more and more strange, with tall rock giants and a group of rough men wearing animal skins and throwing rock weapons. No matter how you look at it, it looks like a low magic version of a primitive tribe. At this moment, a huge steam roar like a train suddenly came to my ears. Thomas, is the technology tree of the ninja world crooked like this? As soon as this idea came up, Hyuga Satoru saw a ninja wrapped in red armor on the other side of the Iwa ninja, dragging a long stream of steam exhaust and approaching him at an extremely fast speed. At the moment when the attack was about to arrive, Hyuga Satoru applied an electromagnetic push to himself and avoided it. The roar of steam stopped, and the tall figure in red armor stopped due to inertia. He had already carved a deep mark on the grassland behind him. Not Thomas, it's Han. Hyuga Satoru recognized the ninja in front of him. One of the two perfect Jinchuriki that Iwa ninja village is famous for, Five Tails Kokuo's Jinchuriki, Steam Ninja Han. Han turned around and looked at Hyuga Satoru with a cold expression. The reaction speed is faster than expected. Hyuga's magnet-style ninja, your luck is over. Tsuchikage actually sent him to snipe Hyuga Satoru. This seemed incredible to Han. He is the perfect Jinchuriki known in the ninja world, and can easily use the power of Five Tails Kokuo. Hyuga Satoru, on the other hand, is a double-blooded ninja who has only recently become famous. However, Onoki's repeated warnings meant that he would not underestimate the enemy. You're not trying to control my armor, are you? It's a pity that it's not made of metal. Han smiled. Naturally he would not make this basic mistake. Otherwise, why not come here and deliver the food directly? Hyuga Satoru also discovered that although the red armor on Han's body was somewhat similar to metal, it was actually made of other materials. I don't know if it was originally made of non-metallic material, or if it was specially made to deal with myself. However, he had never thought of using this method to solve the problem. The two stood on the battlefield, and the surrounding ninjas tacitly cleared the space to prevent themselves from being accidentally injured. The battle between Jinchuriki and Hyuga Satoru definitely affected a wide range of areas. Minato. The Iwa ninja sent Han to deal with Satoru. Jiraiya breathed fire style, knocking away the surrounding Iwa ninja, and shouted at Minato beside him. Han's ability is very unique, with its own sound effects, and he captured it the moment he took action. Believe him. Minato smiled at him. Satoru is not a ninja who will fall down easily. Oh, since all his disciples have said so. Jiraiya also became interested and looked back at the figure facing the tall red figure. You don't seem to be good at physical arts, right? Han smiled mischievously. The blood-red armor, steam spurted out continuously. As a Hyuga ninja, he is not good at taijutsu, which is a bit unscientific. But based on the information currently available, Hyuga Satoru mostly uses destructive sniper tactics against his enemies. A certain Kazekage who had just taken up his position was almost driven crazy by his sinister ability. But since the outbreak of the Third War, he has almost never used his physical skills to fight. Hyuga's family's secret skill, Gentle Fist, has never been used even once. And he is a well-known steam ninja in the ninja world. In terms of physical skills, almost no one is better than him except the muscular barbarian Raikage. This is why he is so confident. He restrained Hyuga Satoru. The roar of steam like a train sounded again. Just as Han was about to attack, he was stunned. Wait a minute. Hyuga Satoru made a pause gesture. I'll change myself first. Fire dragon armor, combined. He was seen assuming a transformation posture, and fluid suddenly squirmed on his body, turning into a red, silver and black metal armor. In terms of level of detail, it is almost perfect for the red armor on Han's body. Okay, let's start fighting. Hyuga Satoru shook his right hand and assumed a special pose for Flame Dragon Man. Now you also have armor, and I also have armor. Isn't this very helly? In the river. What a hair in the river. Han felt like his head was getting big. What is this? They are both descendants of Wying village. And I'm the heir to the Hokage village. Summoning flame dragon armor is cool, right? Everything is right. Hyuga Satoru's indifferent voice passed through the mask of the flame dragon armor. In fact, theoretically speaking, you are also a descendant of Tsuchikage village. You should be able to summon the Earth Tiger armor. It is much more advanced than your armor, which is made of unknown materials. Han was stunned. He did know Tsuchikage village, the alternative name for Iwagakure village. But what is the Earth Tiger armor? Forget it, I don't want to discuss these boring things with you. Can a mere armor resist the power of a tailed beast? A large amount of steam spurted out from the back of his blood-red armor, and with the roar of a train, his whole body rushed towards Hyuga Satoru like a cannonball. Hyuga Satoru dodged easily. Han barely offset the inertia caused by high-speed movement, and a trace of shock flashed in his eyes. Why are you so fast? When Hyuga Satoru avoided his attack before, his reaction speed was not weak, but it was definitely not as abnormal as it is now. You know, he was completely serious and didn't even touch the corner of Hyuga Satoru's clothes. It's not that I'm too fast, it's that you're too slow. Hyuga Satoru rolled his eyes out of habit. Han's steam propulsion is indeed abnormal, and for ordinary ninjas, it is simply a nightmare. It's a pity that I met him. Although Hyuga Satoru's flame dragon armor made of magnetic fluid cannot really possess many of the abilities of the original, its all-round metal protection allows him to apply electromagnetic push to himself without any blind spots. Steam ejection versus electromagnetic ejection. He was beaten in every aspect. One is the energy utilization method that emerged during the Industrial Revolution, and the other is the high-tech technology that has many magical applications in science fiction movies. The two are not products of the same era. Otherwise, in the previous life, Yingzhong would not always be thinking about replacing the backward steam ejection on the aircraft carrier with the latest electromagnetic ejection. Currently, the Ford and Rabbit Fujian are the only two ships in the world equipped with the latest electromagnetic ejection technology. Han refused to give up, gritted his teeth, burst out a steam fart, and rushed towards Hyuga Satoru. The armor's lightning arc pulsed slightly, and Hyuga Satoru easily dodged Han's attack again. His eyes looked down at Han with a hint of mockery. Asshole, how could that happen? Even Han, a steam ninja who has been famous for a long time and has a calm personality, couldn't help but get angry after being played by Hyuga Satoru many times. He couldn't understand why the steam ninjutsu he was so proud of could not even touch Hyuga Satoru's clothes Kakuzu. This is unscientific. You've been fighting for so long, it's time for me to fight back, right? Hyuga Satoru's indifferent voice passed through the armor's mask and reached Han's ears. I was suddenly shocked. Before he had time to react, his eyes suddenly blurred, and he saw a figure wrapped in a blue lightning arc suddenly appearing in front of him. So fast. Hyuga Satoru made a fist with his right hand and hit him hard in the abdomen. Fire fist. Wow. Han's body was arched into a shrimp shape, his pupils were shrunken, and his face was twisted. Without stopping, Hyuga turned and kicked. Han flew backwards heavily. The red armor cracked under the heavy blow, with spider web-like cracks appearing. Kick your Li Ning out of the way. Hyuga Satoru clapped his hands and looked coldly at Han, who fell to the ground. All around, the ninjas on both sides of the war couldn't help but their eyelids jumped when they saw this scene. Han is a famous steam ninja for a long time. When it comes to taijutsu, not many people in the ninja world can beat him. Just like that, Hyuga Satoru kicked him away. Han struggled to get up from the ground, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and stared at Hyuga Satoru with cold eyes. It seems that Onoki's intelligence is very wrong. I admit that I underestimated you, Hyuga's magnet-style ninja. As he finished speaking, the terrifying chakra surged out of him. Want to transform into a tailed beast? Hyuga Satoru became a little more solemn. This place is deep in the battlefield, surrounded by ninjas from both sides fighting in a melee, making it almost indistinguishable. If you completely transform into a tailed beast here, you will undoubtedly kill 1,000 enemies and suffer 800 losses. Han seemed to see through his thoughts and sneered. There is no need to completely release 5 tails, this state is enough. The surging dark red chakra wrapped around his body, and the shape of 5 tails Kokuo could be vaguely seen. Can you still hide now? The majestic steam burst out from his body wrapped in dark red chakra, which was more than a little stronger than before. In the roar of steam, he rushed towards Hyuga Satoru at extremely high speed. Did you use the power of the tailed beast to greatly increase your speed? Hyuga Satoru's lips curved slightly. In this case, let's compare who is tougher. The armor flashed with lightning, and he no longer held back, turning into a beam of lightning and facing the incoming red monster. Boom! The two of them collided hard. The rolling air waves pressed the surrounding weeds to the ground. In the horrified eyes of countless ninjas, only 2 figures were seen, almost leaving an afterimage on the grassland, constantly colliding with each other. One of them was like a red ghost, trailing a long stream of steam exhaust behind it. The other one was wrapped in lightning, and only the appearance of the armor could be vaguely seen. The two of them kept colliding with each other. The ninjas fighting nearby even had to grit their teeth to resist the high-speed wind and waves. On the other side, Jiraiya couldn't help but said in surprise when he saw this scene. Is this also Magnet Style's ability? He looked at Namikaze Minato beside him. But, maybe. Minato hesitated. Although he had confidence in Hyuga Satoru, he did not expect to use this ability that he had never seen before to fight the steam ninja Han back and forth. His brows furrowed slightly. It was actually directly on the battlefield. Thinking about what name to choose. On the battlefield. The 2 speeds were so fast that only afterimages could be seen. They kept colliding with each other, causing wind and waves to surge, and the surrounding ninjas gritted their teeth to resist the pressure. One of the bodies was wrapped in a dark red shadow, exuding an ominous and majestic aura. The other figure was much thinner, and the outline of the armor could be vaguely seen. While moving at high speed, the electric light kept flashing, drawing blue tracks on the grassland. The former is powerful and has its own steam sound effects before each attack, while the latter is much more stable and fast. There was an unlucky Iowa ninja who happened to be between the 2 fighting routes. There was no time to dodge, only a snap was heard. Like an unlucky bird that hit a train. Half of the body exploded into blood mist. Minato looked at this scene with slightly surprised eyes. The speed displayed by Hyuga Satoru has exceeded the limit of conventional ninjas. Without placing the Flying Thunder God mark in advance, he was not sure whether he could catch up with Hyuga Satoru. You know, he is a famous fast man in the ninja world. I silently crossed out the name I just thought of in my mind. Not domineering enough, not long enough either, until a certain moment. The 2 colliding figures suddenly stopped. Han stumbled, half kneeling, and fell to the ground. The red armor on his body shattered at this moment, revealing clothes that were completely soaked with sweat. I didn't expect that in terms of physical skills. I actually lost to you. With trembling eyes, he looked up at Hyuga Satoru with a hint of shock. Since becoming famous, he still has no reservations about using 5 tails chakra. You know, 5 tails Kokuo is considered the fastest among the 9-tailed beasts. With the blessing of 5 tails chakra, he can no longer match Hyuga Satoru. So scary. Speed doesn't come without a price. The faster the speed, the greater the pressure on the muscles and bones. Using the 5 tails chakra without reservation, even if his physical quality is far beyond that of ordinary people, his muscles will be damaged and it will be difficult to display his true strength. At this moment, I didn't even have the strength to stand. As long as I move slightly, my body will feel a tearing pain. On the other hand, Hyuga Satoru doesn't seem to have consumed much. The armor dissolved, and Hyuga Satoru panted slightly as the sweat from his body evaporated. This level of electromagnetic ejection is indeed a bit risky. If we just talk about speed, he even has room for improvement. But the body is vaguely unbearable. Fortunately, my body has been quenched by electromagnetic force upgrades 3 times. Already far beyond ordinary ninjas. Attaching chakra to the surface of the body also buffers a certain amount of reaction force. Only in the thighs and waist, the areas where the electromagnetic ejection was exerted the greatest amplitude, there were some mild strains, which was not considered to have much impact. Han took a slight breath, stared at Hyuga Satoru, and spoke in a deep voice. Among the ninjas I have fought against, no one is better than you in terms of speed. I, Five Tails Jinchuriki Han, wish. Stop it, Hyuga Satoru interrupted him shamelessly. Rolled his eyes. Want to cosplay Madara, are you qualified? The long-awaited B block was interrupted, and even a calm man couldn't help but show a hint of anger. In that case, you asked for it. His body could no longer support the high-intensity battle, and Han finally made up his mind. The crimson chakra covering the body surface suddenly expanded, and the originally somewhat human-like form gradually transformed into a tailed beast. Accompanied by a sharp roar. Five Tails Kokuo, the perfect body arrives. Tailed beast. It's a tailed beast. Did the Iowa Nin even use the tailed beast? Retreat. Keep your distance and don't enter his attack range. Five Tails. Mastering Boyle-Styles speed-tailed beast, trouble. When Jiraiya saw this scene, his face instantly became ugly. Five Tails Boyle-Style and speed are extremely terrifying abilities on the battlefield, causing large units to suffer great losses. In the previous battle, although Han also appeared on the stage, he had never used the full tail beast transformation. It seems that this time he was forced by Hyuga Satoru. Minato, you are the fastest. Go to support Hyuga Satoru immediately. No matter what, you must not let him make any mistakes. Yes, Teacher Jiraiya. On the other side, Huang Tu also noticed this scene and gritted his teeth slightly. Didn't that guy Han promise to his father that he would definitely solve Hyuga Satoru's problem? How come Five Tails was even released? Tailed beasts and Jinchuriki are not the same concept. Although Han is a very good Jinchuriki, using Five Tails chakra mode to preserve his own consciousness is already the limit. There is no doubt that the complete Five Tails state is dominated by Five Tails' independent consciousness. After being imprisoned for so long, Five Tails is probably furious, and he doesn't care whether the enemy is Konaha or Iowa Nin. That position is bound to affect a large number of surrounding rocks. Just then, he noticed Minato, who was quickly approaching Hyuga Satoru. Stop him, Huang Tu shouted with an ugly expression. Now we can only hope that the furious Five Tails can solve Hyuga Satoru's trouble before causing huge losses. A living Hyuga Satoru is worth 5 divisions of Iowa Ninja. The other side, Hyuga Satoru was looking at the Five Tails in front of him curiously. Compared with the Toad One Tail, Five Tails is really quite excellent in appearance. The fur on its body is as white as snow, and it looks like a foal. Its 5 slender white tails are swinging, and white steam spurts out of its nose every time it breathes. It is constantly pulling the turf with its front hooves. Human, you pissed me off. A voice like a sharp mature woman sounded. Five Tails looked down at Hyuga Satoru condescendingly. Compared with his huge figure, he seemed to be looking at an ant. I had just released the seal, and before I even started having fun, I saw Hyuga Satoru looking at me with a tisk in his mouth. Can I bear this? You little ant, go to hell. The hind legs kicked hard, and Five Tails kicked Hyuga Satoru hard with the front hooves. With the blessing of electromagnetic force, Hyuga Satoru narrowly avoided the horse's hoof that was bigger than his head. The complete form of Five Tails, both in terms of speed and strength, is far beyond what Han can match simply with the help of chakra. Is it amazing to be big? Hyuga Satoru also felt a little angry. He also has some experience in dealing with tailed beasts. Just like in the battle against Shukaku, the Magnetic Storm Legion was dispatched, firing countless electromagnetic cannons. Tailed beast, kneel down too. But there is obviously no time to arrange it now, and he does not intend to use this ability again. Chakra surged crazily and submerged under the earth. In a radius of several thousand meters, countless metal particles were decomposed and condensed, and a large amount of metal current surged, converging at Hyuga Satoru's feet. A huge shadow falls. The ninjas on the battlefield looked up blankly. Big, too big. I saw the huge metal Gundam, which looked very much like the Danger Wanderer in Pacific Rim, overlooking the Five Tails Kokuo, which looked a little small in comparison. I wonder if your tailed beast is stronger or weaker than a monster. Hyuga Satoru's mocking voice penetrated the metal Gundam's body. It reached the ears of Five Tails, who was looking up blankly. Kid, are you lost? Are you kidding me? Five Tails, do you think there is something wrong with your eyes? Or has it been locked away for too long, and some huge changes have occurred in the outside world that it doesn't know about? Times have changed. Do all ninjas nowadays like to drive Gundam? Something this huge, it had seen nothing like it before. A ninja named Uchiha Madara, the mere mention of his name makes him fearful. The metal Gundam in front of me now is smaller than Uchiha Madara's, and it doesn't have such terrifying chakra fluctuations. But it still felt fear for the first time. That's the instinctive fear imprinted in DNA. Oh my god, what kind of monster is that? It's actually bigger than a tailed beast. Is it made of metal? The sudden appearance of the Danger Wanderer not only shocked Five Tails, but also all the ninjas on the battlefield looked up at the terrifying metal Gundam in a daze at almost the same time. Strong curves, full metal texture. It seems that a random punch has the power to move mountains and fill seas. Five Tails, which was originally huge, now looks like a severely malnourished long-legged cat. While shocked and frightened, many ninjas on the battlefield suddenly felt a strange feeling. If you can get inside that metal monster and control it to fight, what kind of pleasure should that be? It was almost instinctive, although I had never seen anything like it before. That slight yearning ignited in their hearts almost at the same time. A real man should drive a Gundam. The Danger Wanderer is on the move. An outrageously large metal arm reached down from midair, as if it wanted to strangle Five Tails by the throat. Five Tails suddenly looked like a furry house cat. Several hooves sprang up at the same time, jumping to avoid the huge palm. The metal palm fell to the ground. The ground shook directly, and a huge slap mark appeared. Five Tails Kokuo's scalp is numb. If you were hit by such a monster, it would really not be an ideal picture. A large amount of steam spurted out from behind the butt, turning into strong power. In the blink of an eye, it came to the Wanderer's plate and kicked it hard with its front hooves. This move is very powerful, combining the propulsion of steam with the power of one's own muscles, and once kicked a Birdman in golden body mode away with one hoof. It's a pity that I met Hyuga Satoru. Not to mention the exaggerated weight of the Wanderer. Hyuga Satoru also applied electromagnetic force to the Gundam, pressing the metal soles into the ground, attracting the underground magnetic field, and firmly grasping the huge body. Accompanied by a loud metal collision, the Danger Wanderer only took a slight step back, without even any damage. Five Tails' angry and terrifying blow, in this comparison, is like your cat got angry and jumped up and slapped your chest. The electromagnetic push was applied, and the Danger Wanderer's speed increased significantly, and it rushed towards Five Tails with huge strides. The amount of chakra consumed to control such a huge metal Gundam is extremely terrifying. Fortunately, Hyuga Satoru recreated the nuclear power reactor on the Wanderer's chest. Of course, it is not true nuclear fission, and the current electromagnetic force cannot do it. High-intensity induction furnace. The energy generated by the melting chain is continuously transported to the whole body of the Wanderer. After such conversion, Hyuga's own consumption is greatly reduced. A real man should drive a Gundam. The Wanderer strides towards Five Tails. Every time you take a step, the ground will shake. The hair on Five Tails' body stood on end, like a white cat with exploded fur. The tailed beast's dignity does not allow him to retreat. Four hooves kicked the ground at the same time. The sharp horns on his forehead flashed with cold light, and he shoveled forward with a sliding shovel, aiming at the lower abdomen of the Wanderer. I'll slide my shovel and you'll. Snapped. The momentum suddenly stopped, and two huge metal arms clamped tightly on its throat. He pressed it directly to the ground. The two front hooves fell to their knees under the tremendous force. Five Tails wants to cry, but can't. Why is it different from what I imagined? My sliding shovel move is very powerful. Hyuga Satoru sneered. Five Tails is not weak among the nine-tailed beasts, but it is not strong either, probably in the middle of the pack. The physical attacks are mainly hooves and horns. Accelerated by steam, the attack power is considerable. It's a pity that fighting metal Gundam with the body is a very stupid thing. Five Tails' physical attacks, apart from directly knocking the Wanderer down, are unlikely to cause effective damage. Once the electromagnetic force moves, it is repaired. But to knock down his own Gundam, Five Tails' power is not enough. The absolute advantage of weight, coupled with the attraction of the soles of the feet to the earth under the blessing of electromagnetic force, makes the impact resistance very strong. The blessing of electromagnetic ejection prevents him from being too disadvantaged in terms of speed. Due to the superposition of many factors, it is impossible for Five Tails to beat the Wanderer in physical skills. Five Tails apparently discovered this as well. Realized the reality. He struggled to raise his head and pointed it at the Wanderer. Along with the sharply rising pitch, the black and purple chakra condensed in his mouth. He actually wanted to shoot a tailed beast jade at close range. Clang! An iron fist came down and he was forced to hold it back. Clang! Another iron fist. Five Tails was humiliated, being pulled back and forth by the four hooves beneath him. Human, you have the guts to let me go. Dang, dang, dang. Iron fists as big as sand dunes kept coming down. Five Tails was dizzy. He could only feel the lingering sound of ding dang dang in his ears, and his head seemed to be surrounded by countless little stars. Oh my god, that's a tailed beast. The ninjas watching the battle from a distance couldn't help but feel a little strange in their hearts. Obviously, the terrifying image of tailed beasts is deeply rooted in people's hearts, but the current scene looks like an owner repairing his own cat. It's so strong. That metal monster is so handsome and strong. Although I don't know the name of the metal monster driven by Hyuga Satoru. I will also drive a Gundam in the future. Thoughts like this have been deeply imprinted in their minds. Finally, after being repaired by the Wanderer dozens of times in a row. Snap! Five Tails' horn is broken. Ah, human. How dare you? Five Tails' voice was hysterical. Angry. Totally angry. Five Tails has never been so humiliating. All the previous humiliation exploded at this moment. He didn't use the tailed beast jade because he knew that Hyuga Satoru would never give him a chance to accumulate power. A large amount of white steam spurted out from its body, carrying a terrifying high temperature. It engulfed the Wanderer in an instant and quickly spread towards the battlefield. Hyuga Satoru frowned slightly and controlled the Wanderer to release Five Tails to avoid the range of the steam. Compared to physical attacks, this high-temperature steam poses a greater threat to him. Metal has very good thermal conductivity, and steam will quickly conduct a large amount of heat and condense into water droplets covering the surface of the mecha, thus affecting the accuracy of electromagnetic force control. Five Tails took the opportunity to get up, shaking his still fainting head. Humanity, go to hell. He suddenly opened his mouth, and the black and purple terrifying chakra quickly condensed. Tailed beast jade. At this distance, I'm afraid I can only find a way to bounce it away. Hyuga Satoru looked solemn, etc. He suddenly thought of something and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. While still recharging Five Tails, I suddenly found that the white mist around me disappeared. Almost at the same time, I felt a choking feeling that made it difficult to breathe. A blue spark suddenly popped up under his feet. Five Tails' cardiac arrest. A strong crisis surged into my heart. Boom! The blue flames completely engulfed it. Hyuga Satoru, who had already hid in the distance, looked at the rising blue mushroom cloud with a faint smile. Compared with ordinary water, water vapor is indeed easier to electrolyze. Thank you to the junior high school chemistry teacher for bringing nuclear peace to the ninja world. Super Tail Strong Metal Giant Ranbu slashes Raya. The terrifying and blazing blue flame spread out along with the steaming mushroom cloud, swallowing up less than half of the battlefield. The Iwa ninja who was near the explosion was very unlucky to be turned into ashes. A little further away, those who did not die immediately in the explosion had their bodies stained with the weird blue demonic fire, like maggots attached to their bones, rolling and wailing on the ground, but it could not be extinguished. The combustion temperature of hydrogen is about 2000 degrees, which is far higher than that of conventional flames. When the concentration is between 4% and 75%, an explosion will occur. The power is quite terrifying. At the same time, the relative molecular mass of hydrogen is 2, making it the gas with the smallest density. The struggle to extinguish the flame may increase air turbulence and increase the concentration of hydrogen and oxygen nearby, making the fire burn more and more vigorously. Hyuga couldn't help but click his tongue. After all, in order to increase the hydrogen concentration as much as possible, he ionized and decomposed almost all the water vapor. The explosion only depleted the core area with the highest concentration, and some of it escaped in advance and was not consumed. Come to the rescue. Impossible. At the same time as the explosion, he guided it slightly, directing more of the aftermath to the Iwa Ninja. By rescuing Iwa Ninja, aren't you causing trouble for yourself? He squinted slightly and looked at the core of the explosion. I wonder if Five Tails can still be safe after eating hydrogen and escaping from the big explosion. As the smoke continued to dissipate, the appearance of Five Tails was also exposed to his vision. The hair is gone. Not a hair was left. The originally snow-white and soft fur was now smooth, leaving only a trace of burnt black marks. Lying on the ground, not knowing whether to live or die. It was like a pheasant that had been stripped of its feathers and roasted on a charcoal fire for 3 days and 3 nights. I could barely make out the shape of a horse. Five Tails struggled to open his mouth, as if he wanted to curse something. After twitching for a while, he collapsed. Awful. In terms of appearance, Five Tails should be one of the best among the 9-tailed beasts. Their white fur is as pure as snow. Why did it suddenly become like this? Hyuga Satoru sighed. But the tailed beast is an aggregate of chakra, so it should be recoverable, right? Maybe. Five Tails' body is slowly weakening and can no longer maintain its complete form, gradually turning into a man who does not know whether to live or die. Almost at the same time, a huge rocky hand from below reached in, grabbed his body suddenly, and sank directly into the ground. It moves pretty quickly. Hyuga Satoru's eyes flickered. Obviously, in order to prevent Jinchuriki from being captured, Iwa Ninja made a lot of preparations. The other side, Lois's right palm was pressing on the ground, and a rocky palm behind him slowly spread out, revealing Han, who had fainted. Take him back and notify the medical team for treatment. Yes. Standing up, Huang Tu's face was a little ugly, and he looked at the not-so-tall figure in the distance. Fortunately, he had been paying attention to the progress of the battle and was always prepared, so that he could catch Han back with great danger. Otherwise, if Jinchuriki is thrown away, he may have to personally apologize to Onoki with his head. Lois knew that this battle was lost. Completely lost. That Hyuga magnet-style ninja. Even though she had made so many preparations to target him, she still. Huang Tu gritted his teeth unwillingly. Withdraw. The Iwa ninja, who were still fighting, heard the command and stopped staying, receding like the tide. When the Konaha ninjas who stayed on the battlefield saw this scene, their tense spirits gradually relaxed and they breathed a sigh of relief. Finally won. Since the beginning of the war with Iwa Ninja, due to the disparity in troop deployment, there have always been more defeats and fewer victories. Unexpectedly, this time, the victory was so clean and tidy, even Five Tails. He couldn't help but subconsciously look up at that figure and the giant metal Gundam standing next to him. At this moment, Hyuga Satoru's reputation reached its peak, not only because of his strength, but also the mysterious attraction of the metal Gundam beside him. They all thought secretly in their hearts, what kind of technique is that metal monster? A type of puppetry. Also amazing. Is there a name? With a whoosh, Minato appeared next to Hyuga Satoru. A voice of surprise sounded. Satoru, do you have a name? Do you have a name? Hyuga Satoru originally planned to stop Minato's mouth by casually talking about Gundam Freedom Wind Danger Wanderer Terminator or something. But suddenly I thought that the last time the Armstrong cannon, which was dozens of words long, had spread throughout most of the camp, and even now there are still many Konaha ninjas discussing with each other in surprise. After thinking for a while, he simply rolled his eyes at Minato and turned to leave. He snapped his fingers behind his back. The rover behind him decomposed into countless metal particles and poured into the ground. No name. Minato rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. He made a fist with his right hand, punched the palm of his left hand fiercely, and spoke in surprise. Yes, the hard body made of metal is as tall as a mountain, as if it can even tear the sky apart. Stronger than the tailed beast, cold and tough. It's called Magnet-style Yama no Sora Super Tail Hard Metal Giant Ranbu Zan Raya. He turned around. Satoru, what does this name mean? It's a pity that Hyuga Satoru has already gone away, leaving him alone talking to himself. Ah, Satoru, why did you leave? You haven't told me whether you like this name or not. I worked hard to come up with this name. He wants to catch up with Hyuga Satoru. Magnet-style mountain. So long. Is this the name of the metal giant? When the surrounding Konaha ninjas saw this scene, they all showed strange expressions. The dream in my heart of flying a Gundam in the future seemed to have changed at this moment. Monster. After being silent for a long time, Jiraiya breathed out. Hyuga Satoru's performance is so shocking. I thought that my disciple Minato was already quite abnormal. Unexpectedly, the younger Hyuga Satoru is a monster. No wonder that Guy Orochimaru, when he mentioned Hyuga Satoru, it was as if he had discovered some treasure. What a headache. Being surpassed one by the juniors, I, Jiraiya, the Sannin hero, have lost my reputation in vain. Jiraiya started to feel distressed and scratched his hair. The next generation of ninjas are becoming more and more sophisticated. It was only a matter of time before Minato surpassed him. Unexpectedly, a more terrifying Hyuga Satoru would pop up now. Hyuga Satoru found Aburame Jawei, who was looking at him with a smile. Teacher Jawei, are you okay? He walked over. I didn't expect that I, the instructor, would need you to worry about me. Aburame Ji smiled slightly, and then his eyes dimmed slightly, and he couldn't help but sigh slightly. It turns out that you have already surpassed me as an instructor. I knew my students were very good, but I never thought they would be so good. During the Sand Shinobi War, he had other tasks and did not participate. Our understanding of Hyuga Satoru is limited to rumors. Now in the Iwa Ninja battlefield, seeing Hyuga Satoru's strength from the front, I realize how far he has reached. He even saw the shadow of the two legendary adults in Hyuga Satoru, Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara. He single-handedly ended the Warring States period and created the system of one country, one village. Although Hyuga Satoru is still very immature now, it is not difficult to imagine that at this age, he already has such terrifying strength. In the future, wait until he fully grows up. How terrifying is it? Iwa Ninja Camp. In the largest command camp, Onoki was listening intently to the scouts' report on the battle situation. He put a lot of effort into this battle and even took command personally. Only success is allowed, never failure. According to the plan, Lord Han personally dealt with Hyuga Satoru. The opponent used some kind of special acceleration ability, and his speed was not weaker than Lord Han. The scout reported in a deep voice. According to the latest information, Master Han seems to have completely released 5 tails. Onoki was shocked and asked quickly, "Is it the complete 5 tails?" "Yes." Onoki took a long and solemn breath and lay down on the armchair. The complete 5 tails and the borrowed 5 tails chakra are two completely different concepts. It shows that Han is not the opponent of Hyuga Satoru, and even suffered heavy losses, so he had to release 5 tails. Obviously, in order to restrain him, so many preparations have been made, and they even did not hesitate to replace almost all the Iwa Ninja equipment. We actually made it this far. Onoki's face looked quite ugly. In terms of experience and qualifications, he is one of the best among the 5 shadows, and he will never underestimate any enemy. Even Hyuga Satoru, who has only recently become famous at such a young age. He also made many responses. Now it seems that it was still a miscalculation. One can only hope that 5 tails can take care of Hyuga Satoru. 5 tails is not weak among the 9-tailed beasts. After all, they are just a young generation that has just emerged. It should be impossible for 5 tails to be its opponent. Onoki thought so in his heart. Go down and let me know as soon as you have any news. Yes. The camp became quiet, and Onoki held his breath, waiting for the latest battle situation. After a while, the scout hurriedly came in to report. Tsuchikage-sama, 5 tails was defeated by that Hyuga ninja. Where's Han? Onoki's pupils shrank. Jinchuriki must not make any mistakes. Sir Huangtu took him away in time. The large army is currently on the way to evacuate. Lord Huangtu sent ninjas to send a message in advance and prepare a medical team. Han seems to be seriously injured. His fingers subconsciously squeezed the wooden seat, making a creaking sound. Onoki's face turned green and white for a while. Even though he had participated in the first ninja war, he couldn't help but clenched his teeth slightly after hearing the news. I finally understand why Ross's new cage was tortured into that state after encountering Hyuga Satoru. Even 5 tails lost. From this point of view, the ninja named Hyuga Satoru may already have strength that is not weaker than Cage. However, he still couldn't figure it out. How did Hyuga Satoru defeat Five Tails? Five Tails is the type of tailed beast that is good at speed. If you want to defeat it head-on, even if he takes action, it will be very troublesome. The scout saw his doubts and hesitated. He seems to have controlled some kind of special metal monster, which is taller than Five Tails. Five Tails' attack opportunities didn't work, so a metal monster bigger than a tailed beast. Onoki suddenly thought of Uchiha Madara and was slightly distracted. When he was young, he encountered Uchiha Madara many times. He regarded him as his lifelong rival. But in Madara's eyes, he is just a toy for fun when bored. When you are interested, just use a few more moves, and when you are in a hurry, just knock it down with one move. Madara's Susanoo seems to be some kind of jutsu that is even bigger than the tailed beasts. He still remembers that kind of ability that can move mountains and fill seas. Do you know the name of that technique? Onoki looked over with solemn eyes and his voice was low. The scout's face looked a little strange, and he hesitated, as if he was trying to form words. The scouts who stayed nearby detected their discussion. It seemed that they were calling. Onoki was a little dissatisfied, frowned, and urged. Come on, tell me, now that you've found the name, why are you hesitating? Is it possible that you have to think about it for a long time even to recall a name? I remembered, it's called Magnet-style Yama no Sora Super Tail Hard Metal Giant Ranbu Zan Raya. After saying the name in one breath, the scout took several deep breaths. Fortunately, those who can become scouts have the best memory among ninjas. Otherwise, he might not be able to remember such a long name. Onoki was stunned. What's Magnet-style mountain about? What the hell is that ninjutsu's name? Who gets it? Are you sure you're not mistaken? After digesting the information, Onoki exhaled a long breath, his face gloomy. Now it seems that if he doesn't take action, it may be difficult to suppress Hyuga Satoru. Although Hyuga Satoru's record is amazing, he has absolute confidence in himself after being eliminated with blood stains. As long as you are hit by dust style, no matter what kind of evil genius you are, there is only one way to die. It's just, if he joins the war, I'm afraid Konaha won't let it go. Sarutobi Hiruzen will definitely participate in the battle, and Danzo Orochimaru and other top ninjas will probably be transferred to this battlefield. In terms of heritage, Iwagakure village is still not as good as Konaha. After thinking about it, Onoki gave up the plan of participating in the war in person and said in a deep voice. Send someone to invite Laozi. After a pause, he warned again. Remember to have a better attitude. Yes. The scout wiped the sweat from his forehead. Laozi was the Four Tails Jinchuriki of Iwagakure village, and he had always been at odds with Tsuchikage Onoki. They often had conflicts and even shouted that they wanted to leave the village. Onoki took the initiative to be soft on Laozi, which shows that he was really cornered by that Hyuga ninja. Are both Jinchuriki going to war? He thought in shock. Hyuga Satoru walked in the camp helplessly. Although several days have passed since the battle, the enthusiasm of the Chunin people in the camp still seems to have not subsided, but is becoming more and more intense. At the center of the discussion was Hyuga Satoru and the huge metal mecha. The wild and rugged appearance of the danger wanderer caused waves in the hearts of these ninjas as soon as it appeared. Ninjutsu is so weak. A real man drives a Gundam. Comments like this are endless. Correspondingly, Minato's exaggerated name also became ridiculously popular. It has even evolved into several versions. This is also the main reason why Hyuga Satoru is helpless. He glanced towards Kakashi's camp without leaving any trace. There is still no trace of opening. Unlike the cheers outside, Kakashi seemed to be in another world. Not only did he not participate, he didn't even leave the camp a few times. He should have fully digested what he said. Hyuga Satoru thought to himself. Knowing the dark side of the village and the truth about his father's death, what will happen to Kakashi? Blackening is certain. As long as you give it a little guidance, there shouldn't be any problem if it falls on your side. The future 6th Hokage, one of the village's greatest talents. With such a talent, Hyuga Satoru is really reluctant to give up. No, it's not just Kakashi. Now it's time to start laying out. The three wars are just the beginning. After the war is over, the main plot of Hokage begins. Uchiha Madara, Nagato, Akatsuki. The characters under those icebergs will awaken. On the clone side, a search has been arranged in the forest of the country of grass. In the original work, Obito was taken away by Madara after participating in the Battle of Canopy Bridge, and was trained step by step to become a black man. From this point of view, the underground camp of Madara's old silver coin should be near the Canopy Bridge. With the help of the clone, you might be able to find his base camp in advance. Hyuga Satoru's eyes were bright. His target was never the family or the village. He has a dream: conquer the entire Earth, and then use the Earth as your base. Counterattack Otsutsuki, Konaha Village, Hokage Room. Sarutobi Hiruzen was slightly absent-minded and just stared out the window in a daze. On the table in front of him is an open scroll, which records the latest battlefield information passed back. The physical skills that surpassed Hans, the nearly 100-meter-tall metal giant, the suppression of 5 tails, the big explosion that killed hundreds of rock ninja. Shocking news one after another blasted directly into his mind through the words on the scroll. He fell into a moment of confusion and disbelief. Evildoer, monster. Since the war started, Hyuga Satoru's performance has shocked him so much. He couldn't even find the right words to describe it. I thought that defeating Kazekage Luasha, who had just taken office, was already an amazing achievement, but I didn't expect that this was just the beginning. Even 5 Tails was defeated head-on. A metal giant nearly 100 meters tall. It seems to be called the mountain's cracking sky. It's Minato's style at first glance. Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but want to complain. Although this kid Minato was quite reliable most of the time, his ability to name was something he couldn't praise. His eyes couldn't help but narrow slightly, and strong curiosity emerged in his heart. What exactly is his magnet style? Is there really such a thing as public magnet style? As someone who has personally experienced the Senju Hashirama era, he knows that the god of ninja is not so terrifying at Hyuga Satoru's age. This was also the reason why he felt heart palpitations. However, he is still confident that if he fights head-on, he should win after a lot of effort. Although 5 Tails is powerful, as the cage of the 5 great ninja villages, they have a record of defeating tailed beasts. Except for the unlucky Rasa who was deposed, the other case cages have suppressed 1 tail, the 3rd Raikage of Cloud Hidden Village, and even defeated the 2nd ranked 8 Tails. If 9 Tails wasn't so strong, I should be able to knock him down several times every day. Join them. Sarutobi Hiruzen thought so. What shocked him was that Hyuga Satoru's talent was far from his limit. In a few years, when he has fully grown up, who else can hold him down? Too bad, he's branch house. Sarutobi Hiruzen's expression suddenly became complicated, with an indescribable look. In Hyuga, as a branch house, your fate is already determined in a sense. For Hyuga Satoru, on the one hand, he hopes that he can be stronger and can end the war as soon as possible. On the other hand, he does not want him to be too strong because of fear and worry that it will be beyond his control. This is human nature. However, the identity of the branch house made all these worries and hopes disappear. The girls of the right age among the Sarutobi clan should have been selected, right? Sarutobi Hiruzen groaned. No matter what, after this battlefield is over, his bloodline must be passed on, that kind of miraculous magnet style. Biting his cigarette holder, Sarutobi Hiruzen looked out the window melancholy, his face blurred by the diffuse smoke. Command the camp. From time to time there were bursts of hearty laughter. Ha ha ha, that old guy Onoki's beard is probably so angry this time. After playing for so long, this is the first time I feel so good. Jiraiya's bold laughter echoed in the camp, and the surrounding senior officials looked at each other and laughed knowingly. Almost at the same time, his eyes glanced at the figure with pure white eyes without leaving any trace. The other party didn't seem to be excited about such a result, and was still sitting in his seat calmly and indifferently. Although the war has passed for several days, but the shock it brought has not faded at all. Whether it was the suppression of the tailed beast or the powerful metal giant, their knowledge was refreshed almost every time. Hyuga Satoru, the ninja who created miracles. This is what countless Konoha ninjas call him in the camp. Now, whenever the name is mentioned in the camp, there are cheers. There is currently no movement from the Iwa ninjas. We cannot take it lightly. After the ninjas have recovered, it is time to launch a counterattack. Jiraiya pressed his hands on the sand table in front of him, his eyes flashing with a bright light. Han was severely injured. As expected, it would be difficult to regain his combat strength in a short period of time. Currently, Konaha's high-end combat power has surpassed the Iwa ninja. As long as the situation is unstoppable and we seize the opportunity, we might be able to end the war early. War. Jiraiya couldn't help but feel slightly melancholy. Some dusty memories couldn't help but come up. That was during World War II, and he had not yet received the title of Sannin, but he was already deeply aware of the cruelty of war. In the Kingdom of Rain, as external forces, they witnessed tragic scenes with their own eyes. Heavy rain, blood. By the way, I also had 3 lovely apprentices at that time. How are they doing now? Jiraiya thought of Conan's cute appearance in the frog suit, and subconsciously giggled slightly. At this moment, the door of the command tent was suddenly pushed open. The messenger ninja walked in hastily, with a hint of panic. Jiraiya-sama, the scouts on the front line have received information that the Iwa ninja and the Iwa ninja's large forces are on the way to attack. What? Upon hearing this, Jiraiya stood up immediately. He stared at the messenger ninja with shock and disbelief. Are you sure the intelligence is correct? The Iwa ninja were repulsed not long ago. How long ago did they start to attack again? Not just Jiraiya. Hyuga Satoru also looked at the messenger ninja with a hint of surprise. The same was true for the surrounding senior officials, with shock and surprise in their eyes. They were still discussing counterattack just now, but they didn't expect that the Iwa ninjas on the other side started to take the initiative to attack. Are you kidding me? Being stared at by so many shocked eyes, the messenger ninja had a lot of sweat on his forehead, and he wiped the sweat with the back of his hand. He said quickly, "Indeed, the information should be correct. The scouts are currently monitoring the location of the Iwa ninja troops and are ready to pass back the latest information at any time. In about half an hour, the Iwa ninja's large forces will arrive near the camp." Is that so? Jiraiya took a deep breath and looked a little ugly. What did Huang-Tu think? As a commander, he had just experienced a huge defeat, and even Jinchuriki was seriously injured. He didn't want to recover, but he actually started to take the initiative to attack. Next to him, Hyuga Satoru frowned slightly, also showing a trace of doubt. He always felt that there must be some conspiracy behind Iwa ninja's hasty start of the war. But there was too little information, and he couldn't guess. Jiraiya sighed slightly. It seems that my prediction just now was too conservative. This war will not end easily for a while. The Iwa ninjas have invested more troops. If they are determined to fight with Konaha, the result is really hard to say. Gazing across the faces of every ninja present, Jiraiya's gaze shot out of the camp, with a gleam in his eyes. He shouted in a deep voice. Pass the information on and tell the ninjas to prepare for battle. Yes. Chapter 91. On the grassland, a large number of Konaha ninjas wore dark cyan vests, lowered their center of gravity, and ran quickly with their arms behind their backs. Viewed from a high place, it looks like a surging blue torrent. At the end of the field of vision, a yellow-brown torrent can be seen, approaching. It seems that the information is correct. The Iwa ninjas have assembled even more troops this time than in the previous battle. Jiraiya looked solemn. It seems that the Iwa ninja village is at odds with Konaha. The casualties of this war may be much greater than expected. The two torrents collided with each other in a roar. The Iwa ninjas seemed to have learned the lesson from last time, and the fur armor on their bodies also protected their necks. Don't expect to be able to completely protect Hyuga Satoru's sixth strategy. But at least, he won't be wiped off his neck easily. The strategy used in the battle is to drag the ninjutsu battle into as much as possible, reduce physical combat and shooting games, and minimize the remaining metal ninja tools on the battlefield. In short, just one sentence. Got up. Since Jinchuriki can't kill you, and regular ninjas are just serving food in front of you, then I will focus on defense with all my strength. Can't fight or hide. Hyuga Satoru said that he really couldn't escape. The electromagnetic force vibrates slightly, splitting the surrounding metal ninja tools apart, and directly shaping them into flying swords. Compared with conventional flying swords, this kind of flying sword has a sharper tip and a longer sword body, which increases its armor-breaking and penetrating capabilities. Then, I'll kill with my sword. I saw a large number of metal flying swords flying around Hyuga Satoru, like the Swordmaster's ultimate move Blade Storm. Wherever it went, Iwa Ninja's blood flowed like a river. The Aryan ninja choked on his breath, quickly formed seals, and slammed his hands on the ground. Earth style. Multiple earth flow walls. 4 rock walls stand up from the whole body, wrapping it tightly. No matter what angle it attacks, the earth flow wall can have enough protection. Hyuga Satoru shook his head secretly. The flying sword turned a corner and shot in from the hole above. Only a sharp scream was heard, and blood continued to splash out from the gaps above. Have you even dug your own grave? Hyuga Satoru rolled his eyes. The earth flow wall technique is very practical and can be used on one side or on multiple sides. Unfortunately, it has a weakness and can only be used where it touches the ground. It is a bit unrealistic to use the earth flow wall in midair. Unless you use earth style to make the foundation first. When Jiraiya saw this scene, his originally heavy heart could not help but relax slightly. It's so dangerous, and I still have enlightenment. He alone is worth a division. What Han said is right, your magnet style is indeed as terrifying as Onoki's dust style. Hyuga Wujung used his sword to kill Zhengshuang randomly, and then heard a cold sound behind him, and a hot burning breath suddenly came from behind. He suddenly jumped and flashed, and saw a strong man wrapped in lava appearing behind him. The lava was gurgling under his feet, exuding a hot breath. Laozi, one of the only Jinchuriki in Iwa Ninja Village. Four Tails Son Goku is sealed within his body. Hyuga Satoru instantly recognized the identity of his enemy. Is this the confidence of Iwa Ninja to suddenly attack? The Four Tails Jinchuriki were dispatched, and both Jinchuriki were transferred to this battlefield. Hyuga Satoru opened his Byakugan and scanned the battlefield, but did not find Han's figure. Didn't Han participate in the war? It seems that his injury has not recovered yet. Why, are you the only one who has so much confidence? Hyuga Satoru looked at Laozi with a hint of teasing. As if being stung by his words, Laozi's eyes exposed outside the magma flashed with a hint of coldness. Han was seriously injured. It can be said that if Lois hadn't made preparations in advance, he might have been left in the hands of Hyuga Satoru. Hyuga Satoru's information was also learned one by one through Han in the hospital bed. Laozi didn't dare to be careless. He and Han, one mastered lava style and the other mastered boil style, one was Four Tails Jinchuriki and the other was Five Tails Jinchuriki. If you insist on comparing, it is difficult to tell the difference in strength. At best, the focus of abilities is different. Han was beaten like that by Hyuga Satoru, so he probably wouldn't have much chance of winning. But, Laozi took a slight breath. The task given by Onoki was just to hold off Hyuga Satoru. Then you just need to do your best to complete this task. He stamped his feet suddenly, and a large amount of magma splashed out from under his feet, as if a flame erupted, quickly spreading towards Hyuga Satoru's position. Hyuga Satoru jumped dexterously to avoid the spreading magma. The metal flying swords that were being killed nearby seemed to have received the order in an instant and flew towards Laozi. Laozi's pupils shrank, chakra surged, and the lava armor on his body became a little more powerful. Clang clang clang. Accompanied by the continuous sound of metal clashing, Laozi's body continued to retreat during the attack, and hot sparks flew everywhere, burning the surrounding grass to a pulp. Attacking the flying sword at the front, the tip of the sword gradually melted into liquid and dripped to the ground, cooling rapidly. So close, seeing his lava armor blocking the attack of the metal flying sword. Laozi was relieved. He didn't care about the unbearable pain from being poked all over his body. Pretending to be indifferent, he raised his head slightly and spoke to Hyuga Satoru. It seems that your magnet style is nothing more than this. Hyuga Satoru frowned slightly. In a sense, Laozi's ability was indeed more suitable to fight him than Han. The physical defense of the lava armor exceeded his expectations. His flying sword could reach double the speed of sound when attacking, but it was still difficult to break through the defense. On top of that, the high temperatures caused the metal to start melting. This directly caused the flying sword's lethality to drop sharply, making it a disposable weapon. Lava style. Burning river rock jutsu. Laozi took a deep breath and spit out a huge ball of hot molten lava from his mouth, like a fireball, constantly spraying towards Hyuga Satoru. With the blessing of electromagnetic promotion, Hyuga's enlightenment speed was greatly increased. His body was surrounded by a faint electric light, and he dodged away with lightning. Laozi was unyielding when he got the upper hand, as if going crazy, lava spheres kept ejecting from his mouth. It doesn't matter if he misses, as long as he can force Hyuga Satoru back, it's victory. Trouble. Hyuga Satoru couldn't help but frown slightly. This old purple is so wretched. All the skill points are enough. Not to mention wearing lava armor that looks like a turtle shell. The whole body is covered with flowing magma, which directly transforms into a fixed turret, just like a TMP shooter. Are you so afraid of being approached by yourself? Han was beaten to the ground by his own physical skills. How much shadow did it cast on him? Forget it, I won't play with you anymore. Hyuga Satoru flew up high and looked down at Laozi from a high position. He pulled out a large number of metal particles from the ground and melted them into metal flying swords, which densely filled most of the sky behind him. Can you fly? On the ground, Laozi's pupils shrank and he took a breath of cold air. He suddenly realized that he had made a mistake. In the battle with Han, Hyuga Satoru did not show the ability to fly, so he subconsciously assumed that he could not fly. But if you think about it carefully, even Luasha's magnet-style parallel import can fly with placer gold. What about the even more terrifying Hyuga Satoru? The situation of the battle suddenly reversed. On the battlefield, Laozi raised his head blankly, looking at Hyuga Satoru flying in midair with some horror. The densely packed long swords behind him were like countless hanging swords of Damocles, their tips flashing with cold light. If it weren't for the covering of the lava armor, you could see a lot of sweat beads on his forehead. Can fly. It means excellent mobility. There are very few ninjas with the ability to fly in the ninja world, and without exception, they are all famous and strong. Although Tsuchikage Onoki has always been at odds with him, it is undeniable that he is one of the strongest ninjas in the world. A large part of this is due to the mobility brought by flying. Think about it, you are eating hot pot and singing, and suddenly a dust style falls from the sky. People are gone. Who can I talk to reason with this? Obviously, the dense flying swords behind Hyuga Satoru also have the ability to strangle conventional ninjas to pieces. High in the air, Hyuga Satoru looked down at Laozi condescendingly. A light wave of the palm. The densely packed long swords behind him seemed to have been ordered at the same time, falling from the sky in an instant, and flying towards Laozi with terrifying power. Laozi gritted his teeth. Chakra surges violently. Borrowing chakra from four tails, the lava armor surrounding the body is more powerful, and a lava tail grows from the back of the butt. He crossed his arms to protect his forehead, intending to withstand this move. Clang clang clang. Densely packed metal flying swords fell, and with the sound of metal collisions, Laozi's body continued to retreat in the magma. After the flying sword attacked, it melted into liquid in the high temperature and dripped at his feet. Until a certain moment, the flying sword was exhausted, and Laozi gasped violently. So close. Looking at Hyuga Satoru in the air with lingering fear, Laozi was also shocked in his heart. Hyuga Satoru doesn't play by the rules at all, and his moves and abilities are endless. The move that defeated Han was not used even once, and he showed off his new flying and sword-wielding abilities. When I thought of the terrifying metal giant in the rumors, the shock in Laozi's heart became more intense. No one knows where Hyuga Satoru's limit is. Perhaps he still has new abilities that he hasn't used yet. Onoki, you still underestimated him. Unless this boy dies, our Iwagakure village will never be able to get ahead. Laozi sighed in his heart. If it weren't for the fact that his lava style and four tails abilities were perfect for restraining metal, he might have been chopped down by random swords in this battle. Fortunately, this battlefield is just a cover. Is the other side about to take action? All he had to do was hold him back with all his strength. Thinking of this, the shock in Laozi's heart subsided slightly. Take a deep breath. He raised his head and shouted angrily. Hyuga Satoru, you don't seem to be as powerful as Han said, but with this number of attacks, my lava-style defense is completely enough. Ridiculous. High in the sky, Hyuga Satoru looked down at Laozi with a sneer. It seems that Laozi is planning to fight go to the end. In this case, I will use the two-sleeved green snake today. Come break your turtle shell defense. If God had not given birth to me, Hyuga realizes that the art of swordsmanship is as long as the night. Hyuga Satoru took a slight breath, and a flash of light burst out in his eyes. Here comes the sword. Just listen to his low shout. His voice was not loud, as if he had infinite power, and it resounded throughout the entire battlefield in an instant. The Konaha ninjas who were fighting suddenly saw a strange movement coming from their bodies. They glanced slightly and their pupils shrank instantly, with a hint of shock and disbelief. I saw the kunai and ninja swords they carried, as if receiving some irresistible call, trembled slightly, and flew uncontrollably towards the figure standing high in the sky. While flying, the metal ninja tool suddenly stretched and turned into sharp swords, hovering behind the figure. One handle, two handles, three handles, tens of millions of handles. In just a few breaths, the sky behind Hyuga Satoru was filled with dense flying swords, turning into a sea of swords. Compared to before, is it more powerful than just a little bit more powerful? So handsome. At this moment, Minato's eyes lit up, looking at the figure standing in front of the sword sea in the sky. This move, I would like to call her magnet-style spiral flying sword super round dance roaring by style. On the battlefield, a large number of ninjas who were fighting also froze subconsciously, looking at the endless sea of swords in the sky. What kind of technique is this? It's too scary. Is this the power that humans have? Only Uchiha Rin rolled her eyes helplessly, she knew Hyuga Satoru too well. With Wu's ability, he can certainly use other tricks to defeat Laozi. The reason why he used this trick was to look cool. Laozi swallowed sluggishly. Under the endless sea of swords on the horizon, he suddenly felt that he was also very small. What about the lava-style blood inheritance limit? What about Four Tails Jinchuriki? That flying sword that looked like an ocean was enough to turn the tide of a war. The fear of Hyuga Satoru in my heart has reached its limit, and I don't dare to hold back at all. Chakra surges crazily. Next to the lava tail behind him, 3 new tails grew, and the lava armor on the body reached its peak. This is the limit of what he can do with the power of 4 tails. If you exit the lava chakra armor mode and completely enter the 4 tails chakra transformation, the end may be even more miserable. After all, he and Hyuga Satoru have been fighting against each other ever since. It relies on lava style's restraint on metal. Hyuga Satoru moved his fingers slightly, and the sea of swords behind him seemed to hear the order and turned into 2 intertwined sword dragons and rushed down. Drink. Laozi took a deep breath and shouted angrily. Lava style has been used to the extreme. The 4 lava tails behind him are crawling forward and tightly wrapping the body. 2 sword dragons had already attacked, far exceeding the previous attack, with infinite power, and they swallowed up Laozi in an instant. Laozi's body continued to move backward under the impact of the Stegosaurus, and a large amount of lava armor was peeled off, and grew back with the help of 4 tails. Under the attack of the Stegosaurus, his body felt like being pierced by countless fine needles. The severe sting made him clench his teeth, not daring to release any force. Hyuga frowned slightly and raised his right hand slightly. The flying swords behind him that had not yet attacked were ordered to fly to his right hand, condensing into a huge metal sword. Since the power of a single flying sword is scattered and you can use lava style to resist it, then this sword, what are you using to block it? Hyuga Satoru waved his hand, and the suspended metal giant sword slashed down with terrifying power. Laozi's pupils suddenly shrank, and a chill spread throughout his body along his hands and feet. Within the spiritual world, his crazy voice kept echoing in 4 tails' ears. Son, lend me your power. Roar. 4 tails roared, and chakra was continuously delivered to Laozi. 2 huge lava palms were raised, trying to carry the incoming Stegosaurus and directly resist the attack of the metal giant sword. The ground beneath his feet cracked under the huge force, and Laozi's legs were pressed into the ground uncontrollably. Just a slight pause. The giant sword still fell. Boom. The ground was shaking, and the swirling dust obscured the view of the surrounding ninjas. Laozi. Wangtu's pupils shrank. When the dust dispersed, a huge ravine suddenly appeared. Laozi and his lava armor had long disappeared. Only little bits of magma were left around, slowly flowing into the ravine. Hyuga Satoru gasped slightly. This kind of large-scale electromagnetic force manipulation consumes a lot of money on him. He is planning to make hundreds of flying swords again and continue to kill with his sword. His face suddenly stiffened. Those pure white eyes looked into the distance with a hint of shock. I see, is this your plan? No wonder you tried your best to hold me back. When the fighting was in full swing on that battlefield, No one noticed. Almost at the same time, 5 or 6 kilometers away from the battlefield, there was a special team underground in the grassland, constantly sneaking underground. It is the special team of Iwagakure village. Iwa Ninja Demolition Team. This team, with no more than 20 members, is the absolute ace team of Iwa Ninja Village. Each one masters the explosive secret technique of injecting chakra into clay, and possesses lethality far beyond that of regular jonin. The tasks carried out are also some of the most dangerous and important tasks, and Shinigami is always with him. Over time, the demolition team gained the name of the Demolition Suicide Squad. Hurry up, Laozi and the others are holding back Konaha on the front battlefield. The current defense of Konaha camp must be very empty. As long as we move faster, we can win before they find out. The speaker was a ninja with an afro and wearing a demolition team uniform. Is the explosion-style successor owner of Iwa Ninja Village, Hunt. He is also the captain of the demolition squad. Clear. The members of the demolition squad behind him responded excitedly almost at the same time. What a feat it was to sneak attack the base camp of Konaha troops. When they thought of the scene of the Konaha camp being destroyed by explosions and wails, these members of the demolition team couldn't help but feel ecstatic. Since the beginning of the war, there has never been a battle as miserable as the last battle. Even the Five Tails Jinchuriki Han is still seriously injured and has not recovered. Now, the demolition squads are dispatched. This is the best moment to save Iwagakure village from defeat. After the success, they added another impressive record to their impressive resume. Very good, very energetic. Looking at the eager members of the demolition team behind him, Carrie couldn't help but praise them. The higher the morale, the higher the success rate of the mission. Especially for those demolition teams who carry out the most dangerous missions. A figure suddenly appeared in his mind, and Sho frowned subconsciously. Deidara, the explosive genius, the grandson and disciple of Tsuchikage Onoki. Although he is only a few years old, he has already shown amazing talent in the secret art of explosion style. Not only has he learned all the village's original methods of making explosive clay, but he has even begun to develop some brand new explosive moves. With his amazing talent, it is no surprise that if he fully grows up in the future, he will definitely be an extremely outstanding genius. It's not a bad idea to lead the demolition team to glory. Pity. Carrie couldn't help but sigh. That guy is a fool. The whole thing screams art. Suddenly, several clay bombs were thrown into the village, and then they watched the villagers flee in panic during the explosion. The good name is art. What the hell kind of art is this? If you have the ability to blow up your own village, why don't you go and blow up the Sunagakure village next door? If Tsuchikage Onoki hadn't been pampering him, Carrie would have really wanted to fix that little brat. He was also an explosion enthusiast, and he would never have been able to agree with that brat's ideas. Thinking of this, Carrie couldn't help but sigh again. Because of the war, there are very few ninjas left in the village. Who knows what kind of trouble that kid will cause? Before he left, he heard that the kid had developed a new method of throwing explosive clay into the toilet. The demolition team just moved forward from under the soil, gradually approaching the Konaha camp. After Carrie sensed the sparse patrolling ninjas on the ground, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It's a good risk. It seems that Onoki's calculation is correct. As long as Lois leads a larger number of ninjas to attack, the remaining defensive ninjas in the Konaha camp will not be enough to detect us. Carefully avoiding the scouts and sensing barriers under the soil, Carrie headed directly below the Konaha camp. If you want to maximize the power of the demolition team, it would obviously be too wasteful to simply attack from the gate. Carrie's plan is to sneak into the Konaha camp and arrange a large amount of explosive clay directly inside the camp. In this way, the entire Konaha camp can be destroyed in a very short period of time. The number of ninjas dispatched by Konaha was less than them, and now they mobilized almost all their troops to the frontline battlefield, which made his plan possible. After calculating the position, Carrie led the demolition team members behind him out of the ground. Wherever he looked, there were tents and luggage bearing the Konaha logo. Infiltration successful. A happy look appeared on Carrie's face. Be prepared to take action before the remaining Konaha ninjas find out. Yes. The members of the demolition team behind him also had a look of surprise on their faces. At the same time, several kilometers away, Hyuga Satoru, who had just defeated Laozi, suddenly stiffened and his eyes swept across the grassland and stopped at the Konaha camp in the distance. I see, is this your plan? No wonder you tried your best to hold me back. From Bayan's perspective, he clearly saw a dozen strange figures suddenly appearing in the camp, preparing something secretly. The distance was too far, and Hyuga Satoru couldn't see their specific movements clearly. Just a rough look at what seems to be being arranged. Taking a deep breath, he instantly understood Iwa Ninja's plan. No wonder not long after the war, Huang Tu led more ninjas to start the war. It turned out that it had been planned for a long time. The number of ninjas sent out in Konaha is small. If they want to resist the more ferocious attack of the Iwa ninja troops, they must go out in full force. The old, weak, sick and disabled people left behind in the camp could not stop the elite Iwa ninja team from stealing their homes. However, they may not have thought that the range of their white eyes has reached a terrifying radius of 7 kilometers. This range can only be possessed by a very small number of people, even from the Hyuga clan. So those rock ninjas were discovered by their own white eyes as soon as they appeared. In that case, Hyuga Satoru took a deep breath. Flying higher into the sky, stagnating in the air, holding a hand in the void. Silver fluid flowed out of his body, forming the shape of a sniper rifle, which he held firmly in his hand. From here to Konaha camp, there is about a range of more than 5 kilometers. If you use a bow and arrow, there may be insufficient acceleration, and the electromagnetic sniper rifle is a better choice. Anyway, the danger wanderer mechas have appeared, and they don't care about the impact of a sniper rifle on Iwa ninjas' thinking. The muzzle of the gun was pointed at the Konaha camp several kilometers away, lingering with a faint light of thunder. Minato's eyes flashed on the ground and he murmured in shock. Could it be? Satoru, isn't that distance your limit? Hyuga Satoru narrowed his right eye slightly. Wind direction is being calculated. Gravitational acceleration is being calculated. Correction of white eye angle. The target has been set. Fire. I saw a flash of blue light erupting from the silver muzzle, like a thunder, spanning several kilometers in just a few breaths. In the Konaha camp, a rock ninja who was secretly arranging clay bombs suddenly had his head explode uncontrollably. The brain was mixed with plasma, splattering all the surrounding companions. Who is it? Sho's pupils shrank and he suddenly turned his head. However, kilometers away, Hyuga Satoru pulled the trigger on behalf of Shinigami again. The target this time was the companion of the first member of the demolition team to die. Witnessing the death of his companion with his own eyes, the splattered plasma on his face was still dripping, reflecting a pair of dull and trembling pupils. He looked blankly at the leader of the demolition team, Hunting, as if asking him what happened. Bang, accompanied by a dull sound. His head also exploded. Only the headless body was left facing Chu, with blood splattered all over Chu's body. Lie down quickly. After all, he was a ninja who had experienced World War II. After his mind went blank for a brief moment, Carrie immediately roared loudly to remind him. He didn't care that he would be discovered by the Konaha ninjas in the camp. That kind of miraculous attack, I don't even know where it came from. If you don't dodge quickly, I'm afraid the demolition suicide squad will end up here this time. The members of the demolition team who heard the captain's roar reacted quickly and hurriedly sought cover and shelter. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to have any effect. The blue light representing Shinigami appears again. It seemed that it was Shinigami's trick. This blow missed the vital point, but directly penetrated the lower body of the demolition team member, exploding a bloody mist. Ah! The severe pain made him scream miserably. It kept rolling on the ground, and the gushing blood dyed the surrounding ground red. Such a big movement caused the ninjas in the Konaha camp to react immediately, even if they were unprepared. No, it's an enemy attack. Get ready to fight. There is an enemy attack. Discovering that the Konaha ninjas in the camp had reacted, Carrie's eyes flashed coldly. There was no time left for them to finish setting up the clay bombs. In that case, he took a small breath. A seal was formed in his hand. Almost at the same time, explosions and fires sounded continuously, and many camps and supplies were destroyed in the flames. Execute Plan B. Abandon the arrangement and start the blasting attack directly. Hunting ordered in a deep voice. Yes, The remaining members of the kamikaze squad, whose years of experience licking blood from the tips of knives made them suppress the throbbing in their hearts, began to carry out Hunting's orders. In the light of the explosion, they formed a mark and threw out a large number of fast-moving clay creatures. Frogs, grasshoppers, toads. These clay creatures exploded violently the moment they collided with Konaha's tents and supplies. There was a mixture of fire and roar. The Konaha camp suddenly fell into chaos. Several kilometers away, Hyuga Satoru saw that scene through the Byakugan perspective. I see, is it the demolition team from Iwagakure village? As soon as the explosion and detonating clay appeared, Hyuga Satoru immediately guessed the identity of the opponent. After all, a famous rebel ninja was once born in the demolition team. Deidara dedicated to art. Even though I could play black clay in the Tsuchikage room, I had to go to the Akatsuki organization to play clay. The good name is art. Isn't body art art? Hyuga Satoru couldn't complain. But after knowing the other party's ability, things became easier to handle. Things like detonating clay are useless when encountering lightning style. Not only lightning style, but also lightning can instantly silence the detonating clay. In the original work, during the Fourth Ninja War, Mifune used a battery to trick Deidara after he was reincarnated in the dirt, turning his Patrick Star into a dull fart. The electromagnetic force moves slightly. The projectiles created this time have been slightly modified and will release a large amount of lightning. The muzzle of the gun flashed blue, and another bolt of lightning erupted. Explode, explode, let the roar of the explosion dissipate. Most of the members of the demolition team have a different kind of pleasure from explosions. When they hear the explosion, their adrenaline surges, and their whole body surges into orgasmic pleasure. Suddenly, a blue light flashed across. Directly hitting a jumping clay frog, the lightning jumped a few times, and instantly turned into electric grids, wandering over the entire clay creature. After twitching a few times in the lightning, the bouncing clay creatures all muted and turned into the original clay. The members of the demolition team were looking forward to it like fools, but there was no earth-shattering explosion as they imagined. Only the light of thunder danced slightly from time to time, as if laughing at their stupidity. What's wrong? Where's the explosion? Just as the thought arose, I saw that the blue light that represented Shinigami appeared again after it had stagnated for a long time. The chest of a stunned member of the demolition team exploded directly. On the body, the lightning kept beating, inactivating all the surrounding clay. Then, there was another person. This time it was the abdomen, and the bloody hole as big as a bowl was horrifying. Where the bullet was embedded, the lightning arc danced in a wide range, and the surrounding clay creatures also misfired. The third, the fourth, the fifth. After restraining the explosive clay, the attackers seemed to have no worries, and the frequency of attacks increased significantly. One after another, headless or broken bodies fell, and the bloody scenes continued to impact Hunter's brain. Demolition squads became death squads. Carrie's pupils trembled slightly. He suddenly thought, before the war broke out, Iwagakure sent advance troops to station in Windmill Town in the country of grass. Suddenly one day, almost all the scouts lost contact at the same time. In the end, even the entire advance team lost contact. Onoki was furious. A large number of Iwa ninjas were sent to investigate. They found the corpses of those scouts near the country of grass. Each one of them was killed with one hit, and metal particles embedded in their bodies were found. There were many scouts, even lurking in the soil, who were suddenly killed by that kind of attack. The investigating Iwa nin discovered their bodies. It's because that patch of grass grows extraordinarily vigorously. Since then, almost all Iwa ninja scouts have been frightened when performing missions. Especially those scouts lurking in the soil. They were afraid that their teammates would rely on the growth of weeds above to find them. The entire Yenian village scouts are haunted by this fear. Carrie gritted his teeth. Obviously, that person is the same person as the one being attacked now. The advance troops led by Tutu were probably poisoned by him as well. The same thought also came from the heart of Huangtu on the battlefield. His pupils were constantly trembling, and he stared blankly at Hyuga Satoru who kept sniping. The continuously flashing light from the muzzle of the gun directly verified a certain guess in his mind. Oh, it's you. Lois gritted his teeth and his eyes were cracked. Although we knew about Hyuga Satoru's deeds of sniping and killing a large number of Sand Shinobi senior officials at the Sand Shinobi battlefield, the bow and arrow he used at that time did not match the bullets found in the Iwa ninja's body. Although there were some vague guesses in my mind, I didn't come to a conclusion. However, the scene before him has completely verified his guess. The culprit who killed dozens of scouts at the beginning of the war, scaring the entire Iwagakure village of scouts into fear. It's Hyuga Satoru right in front of me. In the air. The lightning from the muzzle of the sniper rifle continued to erupt. Those sniper sounds seemed not to hit the air, but to the heart of the Iwa ninja on the battlefield. Apparently, not only Lois, but also many other Iwa ninjas recognized Hyuga Satoru. It turns out that the mysterious man who caused them great mental trauma at the beginning of the war is the same Hyuga Satoru who used the Gundam to beat Five Tails and kill Laozi in the previous battle. The two figures overlapped, making them suddenly feel shuddering. After Jiraiya saw the position where Hyuga Satoru's gun was pointed at, he was slightly startled and turned around to look around. Isn't that the location of the camp? Could it be? Looking from here, only a black spot can be seen in the Konaha camp several kilometers away, with a small amount of black smoke rising vaguely from above. No wonder they launched a sudden attack, these fools of Iwa ninja. Jiraiya, who discovered the Iwa ninja's conspiracy, was so angry that he wanted to fly back to the camp immediately. The attack suddenly increased greatly, beating the surrounding Jonin until they were completely breathless. In the huge ravine in the center of the battlefield, an arm with a small amount of lava remaining suddenly stretched out, pressed it on the ground, and moved its entire body out bit by bit with support. Laozi looked miserable. He collapsed on the ground and gasped for air. There is still a small amount of lava armor left on the body, and the clothes on the chest have been torn and blood is dripping. What a risk. If Four Tails hadn't lent me all their power in time, I might have been. Laozi murmured with lingering fear, and a trace of fear flashed in Laozi's eyes. Hyuga Satoru's move almost destroyed all his defenses head-on. Fortunately, with the help of the power of Four Tails, while defending, he burned the earth with magma to create enough cavities to buffer the damage of that move. Otherwise, I'm afraid he will really have to confess here this time. Have they started taking action over there? As long as they can succeed, then my efforts will be worth it. Thinking of this, the depression in Laozi's heart subsided slightly. At this moment, a sudden sonic boom disrupted all his thoughts. He raised his head suddenly, his eyes trembling slightly. How could Konaha camp? The Iwa ninja demolition team has fallen into complete chaos. The released clay bombs will always be hit by the sudden blue light, constantly bursting out a large number of arcs, and almost all the bombs will directly misfire. The biggest attack method of the demolition team has directly become the stuffy fart. Even if they want to self-destruct and die with the Konaha ninjas, there will always be a blue light shot accurately and take away their lives. Even the last bit of dignity was taken away. This made Carrie feel extremely humiliated. As the ace demolition team of Iwagakure village, this was the first time they felt so powerless. Retreat. We can't lose everything here. Quickly retreat. Karakura ordered in panic. Under that kind of miraculous sniping, nearly 10 members of the Rock Ninja demolition team had been killed. This makes the already poor demolition team even worse. As the ace team of Iwagakure village, the resources consumed to train each member of the demolition team are far more than those of regular Jonin. And not just anyone can become one, and one needs to go through layers of selection. This also resulted in the scarcity of demolition team members. Even though Iwagakure village spared no effort to cultivate them, there were only less than 20 people in total. Almost half of them were lying on the ground now. Hunting is anxious. It's so urgent. Not to mention that the mission has not been completed yet. Even if it is completed, with this damage rate, a layer of his skin will be peeled off when he returns to Onoki. Members of the demolition team began to drill into the ground. It's a pity it's useless. With the buff added by the full picture perspective lock, the lightning shot easily penetrated the soil and entered his body. The terrifying kinetic energy carried by the bullet instantly destroyed all his vitality, and he didn't even struggle, but just belched into the soil. If the Konaha ninjas hadn't cleaned up his body after the war, the flowers here will bloom particularly vigorously next year. The same scene played out elsewhere. One after another, members of the demolition team died in panic while escaping. Some fell in front of the tent, or their bodies were caught in the burning flames, or embedded in the soil. This tragic scene continuously impacted Hunt's nerves, causing his brain to fall into a brief blank, and a powerless sadness surged into his heart. It's over. It's all over. The other party had no intention of letting them go. He clearly saw the movements of every member of the demolition team, like fish on the chopping board, with no chance of escape. He suddenly began to regret why he had to perform this task. I'm afraid the demolition squad will be delisted today. Thinking of this, a strong desire for destruction suddenly surged in his heart. That kind of sadness and heroic emotion surged out. The chakra in the body surges crazily, all converted into violent explosion-style chakra. Unlike ordinary members of the explosion team, his explosions do not rely on secret techniques, but explosion style. Even if Raiden had the ability to deactivate the detonating clay, it would not be able to restrain him. The terrifying explosion-style chakra condenses on the right hand and is about to explode. With tears in his eyes, he seemed to see the glorious scene of Iwagakure village regaining its glory after the victory of the war. Tsuchikage-sama, Mr. Wongtu, our mission is accomplished. Whoosh! A blue light exploded directly into his chest, and the violent chakra that was originally agitated also calmed down instantly. The cold corpse fell straight down, and the thunder arcs that danced from time to time seemed to laugh at his stupidity. Several kilometers away, Hyuga Satoru rolled his eyes helplessly in the air. Really, you just blew yourself up. Why are you pretending to be heroic? For those who didn't know, I thought your codename was Pangolin. With Carrie's death, the Iowa Ninja Demolition Death Squadron was completely wiped out. This home-stealing operation against the Konaha camp ended tragically in this way. Hyuga Satoru put down the sniper rifle in his hand and floated in the sky, overlooking the Iowa Ninja on the battlefield from a high position. A chill spread from the hands and feet of those Iowa nin to the whole body. Although I don't know who Hyuga Satoru's sniper target is, it is obvious that Hyuga Satoru has his hands free. The next one is them. Under this terrifying deterrent, fear has arisen spontaneously. Huang Tu couldn't help but grit his teeth. My heart seemed to be clenched tightly by big hands. Hyuga Satoru stopped sniping. I'm afraid there is only one possibility. The demolition team's mission has failed, so there is no need for him to continue the attack. A sense of sadness and regret came to my heart. Lois knew that this battle had failed again. It is still unknown how much the demolition team has suffered, but judging from the tragic situation of the scouts discovered previously, the damage is definitely not low. Father, you still underestimate him. Looking at the figure standing in the sky, he sighed in his heart. The failure of the demolition team made the frontal battlefield useless. The reason for the sudden attack was just to divert the tiger away from the mountain and create opportunities for the demolition team's mission. Once the entire Konaha camp is destroyed, no matter how strong Konaha's side is, they will not have the power to revolving heaven. The end result is that he can only be slaughtered by the Iowa ninja troops. Pity. All failed. Huang Tu gritted his teeth and looked up at the figure in the sky. It's him. 2 consecutive failures were all because of this person. He suddenly began to understand that Rasa, that unlucky cage, was played by Hyuga Satoru again and again like this. Finally destroyed all hope. Heartbroken. Retreat. Retreat. The voice of Lois resounded on the battlefield, and the pressure in the hearts of those rock ninjas suddenly relaxed after hearing it, and they hurriedly fled backwards. The pressure brought by Hyuga Satoru was too much. Even if Lois didn't give the order, as long as no one blocked the man in the air, they would probably collapse out of fear before long. Release several large earth styles one after another to block the pursuit of Konaha ninjas. Huang Tu moved his eyes away from Hyuga Satoru in the air and ran away resolutely. Call. Hyuga Satoru took a long breath and landed from the sky. In the end, it was a psychological war. His chakra is about to be exhausted, and the Iowa ninja troops still have a certain numerical advantage. If they really fight to the death, it may be very troublesome. But it seems that their stone will is not strong, right? Jiraiya walked towards him and asked quickly. Satoru, what happened in the camp? Well, the frontal battlefield is just a cover. The real purpose of the Iowa ninja is to let the demolition team sneak attack the empty camp behind. Demolition team. Jiraiya gasped. The Iowa Ninja Demolition Team was famous as the ace force in the ninja world during World War II. They carried out the most dangerous missions, and the secret technique of explosion style they mastered caused an unknown amount of damage. The top management of Konaha once wanted to organize such an ace team, but they were unable to crack the secret of detonating clay. Thinking of this, Jiraiya's heart couldn't help but feel heavy, and he asked with some anxiety. Satoru, those demolition teams didn't cause a lot of damage, right? After all, it will take some time to get back to the camp from here. If you want to get information, the first priority is naturally Hyuga Satoru, who has the Byakugan. Oh, I guess not. I killed them all before they took action. Hyuga thought for a while and said casually. Oh, all right. Jiraiya breathed out and relaxed. It was lucky that no big losses were caused. As for the demolition team, as long as they take good protection in the future, they should not be allowed to seize the opportunity again. Etc. Jiraiya seemed to have thought of something, and suddenly raised his head, looking at Hyuga Satoru with a hint of surprise and disbelief. Satoru, what did you just say? There's no big loss. That last sentence, I killed them all before I started. Jiraiya was stunned for a moment, then raised his head and laughed. Ha ha ha, Onoki's beard is so angry this time. Iwagakure Village's ace unit, the special team that was trained with the entire village's efforts, was completely wiped out. Ha ha ha, that's great, Satoru. Jiraiya took a step forward, and excitedly patted Hyuga Satoru's shoulder with his generous palm, his face filled with indescribable surprise. Satoru, you were really the hero of the village this time, ha ha ha. Hyuga Satoru was a little embarrassed and wanted to push Jiraiya's palm away, but after a few attempts, he found that the other person was surprisingly strong, so he gave up. On the messy battlefield, Hyuga Satoru just stood in the middle, surrounded by the adoring eyes of Konaha ninjas, and Jiraiya's bold laughter continued to echo on the battlefield. Konaha Camp. Command the camp. After taking stock of post-war losses, Jiraiya's face was a little solemn, and he frowned while facing a plate of data placed on the table. On the frontal battlefield, since the number of Iowa ninja exceeded that of Konaha, the number of losses was not small. As for the camp, fortunately Hyuga Satoru discovered the opponent's conspiracy in time. All members of the demolition team were wiped out. It didn't cause much damage. In comparison, the losses on Iowa Ninja's side must be far greater than those on Konaha's side. Especially if the demolition team is completely wiped out, even in the next 10 years, Iwagakure Village may not be able to gather enough ninjas to form the demolition team. At present, among the three battlefields, the most cruel is the Iowa Ninja battlefield. If Iwagakure can be defeated as soon as possible, the three battles may be over soon. However, the stubbornness of Yenian Village was far beyond his imagination. Jiraiya stared at the sand table in front of him and pondered for a long time, when an idea suddenly came to his mind. He took a long breath and ordered in a deep voice. Go and call Minato over. I have an important task to give him. The Konaha ninja outside the camp nodded slightly. Yes, Lord Jiraiya. In the quiet camp, Jiraiya crossed his hands and rested his chin, staring solemnly at the sand table in front of him. To be precise, it is a bridge in the sand table. There are a few small words written below. Kanabi Bridge. Iowa Ninja Camp. Onoki's eyes were ashen as death, and he stared blankly at the open space outside the camp. Not long ago, he just learned the latest information about the war. The flying sword killed hundreds of rock ninjas, Laozi was defeated head-on, and the entire demolition team was wiped out. When Onoki saw the first two pieces of information, although he was angry, he had already foreseen it. But the last piece of information completely shattered his heart. The demolition team was wiped out. How can it be? That is the ace team built with all the efforts of Iwagakure Village. Until now, he was still a little unbelievable and couldn't believe this shocking result. Father, you still underestimate him. Huang too, who was standing next to him, exhaled with a complex expression. It can be said that the two consecutive defeats were all because of the ninja named Hyuga Satoru. If it weren't for him, Yenian Village would not be in the current situation. He has mastered a long-range sniping technique, with a range of more than 5 kilometers, far exceeding the distance shown on the Sand Shinobi battlefield. We still don't know if this is his limit. That's how the entire demolition team was sniped by him. The advance team led by Tutu must have been killed because of him. I see. Onoki seemed to have aged more than 10 years. Weakly interrupted him. Before the war broke out, a large number of scouts and advance troops in Iwagakure village disappeared. It seemed that he was responsible. Horrible. How old is he? How far will it grow in the future? Is Senju a ninja god like Hashirama? Give me the order to move the entire camp back 3 kilometers and double the number of scouts patrolling outside the camp. The range of 5 kilometers should not be the limit of Hyuga Satoru's sniping. Onoki can only increase the distance between camps as much as possible and send more patrol scouts to prevent his sniping. Yes, Huang-tu responded in a deep voice. In addition, Onoki's eyes narrowed slightly. It's time for a decisive battle. I will take action myself. Since I failed because I underestimated him. Then, it's up to me to kill him myself. Father. Huang-tu stared at Onoki blankly. The last time I saw this momentum from Onoki was on the eve of the decisive battle with Third Raikage. Immediately, a joy surged into my heart. My father is one of the strongest ninjas in the ninja world, mastering the dust-style blood-stained elimination. No matter how strong Hyuga Satoru is, he can't make waves, but dust-style is enough to reverse everything. Great, as long as father takes action, Iwagakure village will not be defeated yet. Huang-tu said in surprise. Minato was sent to Kanabi Bridge. When Hyuga Satoru heard the news, he was stunned for a while, and then smiled helplessly. Is this a self-correction of the timeline, or a move by the Lord of Destiny? The battle at Kanabi Bridge can be said to be the beginning of the main plot of Hokage. Almost all the love and hatred in the ninja world in the future will start from there. Time traveled to the present day. Although Hyuga Satoru's relationship with Obito is not very deep, it does not mean that he does not care. On the contrary, he is quite cautious about this boss behind the scenes of the ninja world. In fact, a large part of the reason why Clone Zero was born was because of this incident. On the other side of Kanabi Bridge, the clone is exploring. Madara's underground camp is very hidden. Although the exact location of the clone has not yet been found, the general range has been determined. Because of him, Kakashi has been very different from the original timeline. Hyuga Satoru doesn't know if Obito will turn black. But no matter what, he was ready. If Madara really takes action, he will definitely not be able to hide it from the investigation of the clone. At that time, you can make some arrangements according to the situation. Hyuga Satoru's eyes flickered. The Third Ninja World War, a war that frightened countless ninjas, was just the starting point for him to enter the ninja world. There is still a long way to go. His goal has always been beyond the stars. Time passed slowly like this. The Iwa ninjas seemed to have shrank up. Except for some small-scale harassment, there were almost no large numbers of Iwa ninjas visible. In fact, even the Iwa ninja camp retreated again and again, seemingly to guard against Hyuga Satoru's sixth tactics. Scouts and sensory ninjas were online all day long, and their distribution range was extremely wide. The Konaha camp ushered in a rare sense of comfort. Everything was so quiet. It was so quiet that it didn't look like a war. I'm afraid it's going to be a decisive battle. In the command tent, Jiraiya looked at the sky outside and couldn't help but show a hint of worry. Apparently, this is the calm before the storm. The Iwa ninjas' large-scale retreat must have some agenda. Jiraiya couldn't be sure what the other party was planning. Fortunately, taking advantage of this period of calm, Konoha's ninjas had finished resting. The small amount of damage caused by the previous demolition team has no impact with the operation during this period. The Minato team should have arrived at Kanabi Bridge, right? Jiraiya couldn't help but think slightly. On the frontal battlefield, Konoha's ninjas have been dispersed, causing the troops deployed on each battlefield to be somewhat stretched. After all, except for the Sunagakure village that had surrendered, the other 4 major ninja villages were all involved in the war against Konoha. As a result of this being the largest Iwa ninja battlefield, Konoha has always been at a military disadvantage. However, under the successive blows of Hyuga Satoru, the morale of the Iwa ninja troops was obviously not high. But it would be unrealistic to expect Iwagakure village to surrender based on this alone. Unlike Sunagakure village, Iwagakure village is famous for its stubbornness, especially the third Tsuchikage Onoki, whose temper is as bad as a stone. It would be more realistic to ask him to surrender than to kill him directly. If Minato can destroy the supply line of Iwagakure village, it will have the final say, completely defeating the stubborn resistance of the Iwa ninja. Not only Jiraiya was aware of this strange silence, but the entire Konoha camp fell into a slightly depressing atmosphere. There has been no war for a long time, and even the lowest ninjas have noticed something abnormal. Satoru, it seems a little too calm recently. Uchiha Rin showed a slightly worried look, and looked straight at Hyuga Satoru with two pairs of dark eyes. Well, I guess it won't be long before the decisive battle begins. Hyuga Satoru also looked a little solemn. He didn't know what the Iwa ninja was planning, but there was no doubt that the next battle would be the most brutal and largest one. If only two Jinchuriki participated in the battle, then Hyuga Satoru wouldn't be too worried. The focus is on the third Tsuchikage Onoki, who never appeared. His dust style has been eliminated, and he has the ability to break down substances into molecules. According to Hyuga Satoru's calculations, this should be an ability that only his electromagnetic power level 5 can master. Especially on the battlefield, this kind of lethality will be brought to the extreme. If hit, you will die. Rin, when the war starts, you should stay behind me, after all. Hyuga Satoru looked at Uchiha Rin with some worry. Before he finished speaking, he was directly interrupted by Uchiha Rin. What are you talking about? Uchiha looked at him coldly, showing a hint of dissatisfaction. I'm a ninja from the Uchiha clan, how could I be a coward? Moreover, Uchiha Rin pouted. I've already activated the 3 Magatama. Even if I'm not as good as you, the average Jonin can't threaten me. Self-protection is enough, right? Hyuga Satoru sighed helplessly. There was no way, he had long known that Yilin's temperament would never hide behind him. 3 Magatama, which Uchiha Rin awakened in the first 2 wars. The blood and fire of war are the best weapons to sharpen Uchiha. This also shows her talent. In my impression, the 13-year-old Sanmagatama is only comparable to Shisui and Itachi. But this is not enough. Hyuga Satoru has deeply experienced the ruthlessness of war. Only a more advanced Mangekyo Sharingan can truly deal with threats on the battlefield. Hyuga Satoru breathed out slightly. Since Rin didn't want his care, he could only guard her silently. Just like that, another 2 days passed. Jiraiya was convening high-level officials in the camp to discuss matters regarding the general attack, when a scout suddenly came in a hurry to report. Oops, Lord Jiraiya, the Iwa ninja suddenly launched a large-scale attack. Jiraiya's eyes turned cold. Sure enough, they finally lost their temper. How many people are there in the Iwa nin's army? The scout said hurriedly, with a hint of fright still remaining in his eyes. 8,000 people. How many? It's about 8,000 people. Even if there is a deviation, it will never be too different. Jiraiya took a deep breath, and his face was more solemn than ever before. On this battlefield, Konoha has invested about 5,000 ninjas one after another. Yenian village requires more, with more than 6,000 ninjas invested. Excluding the losses from successive battles, according to his estimates, there are only about 4,000 ninjas left that can be used. If the information is correct, it means that, excluding the remaining ninjas in the camp, Onoki has at least transferred more than 3,000 ninjas to the village. Is he crazy? Aren't you afraid of a sneak attack from Union Village? Union Village and Yenian Village are feuding. With such a large-scale mobilization of troops, if the barbarians smell the blood, they might directly turn their guns and attack Yenian Village. Jiraiya looked quite ugly, but now is obviously not the time to think about it. He looked out at the layers of Konoha tents, his eyes flashed, and he shouted in a deep voice. Send the order and inform all ninjas. It's time for a decisive battle. Konoha camp. About 1 kilometer away, a large number of Konoha ninjas ran wildly, like a blue torrent. All the information has been passed on. The Iwa ninja dispatched 8,000 ninjas, and on the Konoha side, except for the wounded who were left behind in the camp, all those who were able to participate in the battle have already participated in the battle. There are only more than 4,000 people. It is equivalent to a Konoha ninja fighting 2 Iwa ninjas at the same time. This is a battle with huge disparity in strength. But no one had the slightest fear, they were determined to fight to the end, and their eyes were full of fighting spirit. Until a certain moment, the grassland suddenly shook slightly. Visible to the naked eye, a yellow-brown torrent appeared at the end of the plain. Coming. Jiraiya's Adam's apple moved slightly and he took a slight breath. He shouted angrily in a deep voice. Be prepared. All the Konoha ninjas were very energetic, with a small amount of sweat dripping from their foreheads. Some ninjas even bit the tip of their tongues to keep themselves absolutely awake. Until a certain moment, the vibrations coming from under the feet became more and more obvious, and the yellow-brown torrent kept approaching, turning into rock ninjas roaring loudly. Almost at the same time, the Konoha ninjas in the front line who were ready quickly formed seals. They formed a neat queue and spit out blazing flames from their mouths. Fire style. Dragon Flame Jutsu. The Dragon Flame technique is a linear attack fire style. Sometimes it is also combined with steel wire to increase the spread of flames. A large number of fire snakes running in a straight line gathered together and formed an airtight sea of fire, attacking the rushing Iowa ninja in a mighty manner. Earth style. Earth flow wall. Almost at the same time as the fire style struck, the Iowa ninja in the front quickly formed a seal and slammed his hands on the ground. A large number of earth walls kept rising in front of them, facing the raging sea of fire. In the high-temperature roasting, the front layer of soil was charred black and collapsed, except for the weak spots that were penetrated by the flames, almost completely blocking the sea of fire. At the moment when the flames subsided, a line of rock ninjas who had been prepared from behind came out, quickly formed seals, half-crouched in the gap between the earth walls, and suddenly took pictures with their palms. Earth style. Earthquake core. The earth suddenly cracked open, and from the position where their palms pressed down, cracked ravines rushed towards the Konoha ninjas. Seismic cores are ninjutsu that can change the terrain. If so many ninjas release seismic cores together, the power is far greater than that of a single ninja. The ground beneath their feet suddenly cracked, and a large number of Konoha ninjas were caught off guard and staggered, almost falling, and their formations were in chaos for a while. At the critical moment, a large amount of black fluid suddenly gushes out from the gaps in the cracked earth. These fluids seem to be alive, forming a large number of slender arms that resemble spider webs, firmly bonding the cracked ground together. Well done, Satoru. Jiraiya gave a thumbs up to Hyuga Satoru, who was not far away. Although I don't know the principle, I am sure that Hyuga Satoru did it right. Hyuga Satoru smiled and nodded at him. It was he who broke down the metal particles in the earth and exerted venom-like abilities before closing the cracked ground. After his body stabilized, a large number of Konoha ninja roared and rushed towards the Iowa ninja. With old and new grudges, the two ninjas fought together with red eyes. Hyuga Satoru flew high into the air, and with a slight shake of his right hand, he pulled out a large number of metal particles from the ground, decomposed and condensed into dense flying swords. He kept passing through the group of rock ninjas, causing a shower of blood. The number of Iowa ninjas far exceeds that of Konoha. If you want to maximize your winning rate, obviously, massacring regular Iowa ninjas is the best choice. The Iowa ninja are obviously ready. Laozi and Han entered Tailed Beast Chakra mode almost at the same time. Han's body was completely wrapped in dark red chakra, and 5 tails swayed chaotically behind him. Laozi used 4 tails chakra to strengthen the lava-style armor mode, and 4 lava tails also appeared behind him. He must be forced down. The two shouted at the same time. Laozi opened his mouth and transformed directly into a splatoon. A large number of lava balls wrapped in high temperature were shot into the air at Hyuga Satoru. And Han even started to charge up the tailed beast Jade directly. Are both Jinchuriki used against me? Hyuga Satoru narrowed his eyes slightly, and while avoiding the lava ball, he kept staring at the tailed beast Jade in Hank's mouth. The tailed beast's attack range was too large. Even if it couldn't hit him, if it hit Konoha, the damage would be horrific. With a slight movement of his fingers, a large number of flying swords gathered together and turned into a sword dragon flying towards Han, who was accumulating power. Suffer it. Laozi's heart tightened, and he quickly shot a large number of fireballs to attack the Stegosaurus. The flying sword was scattered, then regrouped, and its power was not reduced, and it attacked Han, who was accumulating power. His mouth, to be exact. Han roared in pain, his head shifted under the huge impact, and the tailed beast Jade in his mouth that had not been fully charged also lost control and flew directly towards the Iowa ninja troops. Boom! A small mushroom cloud rose and swallowed a large number of rock ninjas. Han shook his head, got up from the ground, and stared viciously at Hyuga Satoru in the air. The tailed beast Tama has been charged for too long. Once Hyuga Satoru seizes the opportunity, the only ones injured will be the Iwa ninja. From this point of view, the strategy of using tailed beast Jade to force Hyuga Satoru failed. In that case, Han took a breath and shouted to Laozi next to him. Laozi, come and assist me, I will fight him head on. Good. Han stared at Hyuga Satoru, and a large amount of white steam suddenly spurted out from behind his butt. With the help of this impact, he jumped up from the ground and rushed directly to Hyuga Satoru in the air. Almost at the same time, the frequency of fireballs spitting out of Laozi's mouth increased significantly, blocking the location where he could avoid it. Hyuga Satoru suddenly felt sick. Of these two Jinchuriki, one is more disgusting than the other, one likes to spit things from his mouth, and the other likes to spray things from the back of his butt. How? I am the 6th child, and you two are the 8th child. With the help of steam ejection, Han came to the front of Hyuga Satoru in an instant, his body turned somersault and the 5 tails behind him flicked suddenly. In the flash of lightning, the silver fluid on Hyuga Satoru's body squirmed, forming a metal shield in front of him. Bang! The 5 tails hit the shield heavily. Hyuga Satoru's body fell uncontrollably. It hit the battlefield. Success! Han and Laozi looked happy almost at the same time. Hyuga Satoru shook his head, which was a little dizzy from the shock. Almost instantly, a strong sense of crisis suddenly surged up, sending chills down his spine and to the back of his head. Since the beginning of the war, this was the first time he had such a sense of crisis. It seems that my life may disappear at any time. The ground beneath his feet suddenly collapsed. Hyuga wanted to fly up, but found that his body was strangely congealed, and every movement seemed to be filled with mercury. Sealing techniques style. When, kid, don't underestimate the ninja called Shadow. Onoki's hoarse roar came from the ground, his bloodshot eyes stared at Hyuga Satoru, his hands were maintaining the dust-style release posture. That blazing white light has erupted. Enlightenment. Uchiha Rin's grief-stricken screams echoed throughout most of the battlefield. That is, Jiraiya's pupils shrank, and he saw terrifying white light erupting from Hyuga Satoru's feet. Is it dust style? Could it be? Is that so? Hibernating underground in advance, using sealing techniques to isolate Byakugan's detection, and the moment I land, use the prepared dust style to attack. Haha, Onoki, as a Tsuchikage, I really wronged you. So, I'll do my best too. At that moment when the blazing white light engulfed him, Hyuga Satoru's eyes danced with lightning arcs. Tyrant mode. Open. Woo. Uchiha Rin's mournful cry echoed across the battlefield. Hyuga Satoru's body has been completely engulfed in blazing white light. Underground where the white light erupted, the surrounding soil had been completely decomposed, revealing a huge circular hole. Onoki still maintained the dust-style release posture, with sweat dripping from his forehead and breathing heavily. Using dust style with almost all his strength is a big drain on him. Looking at Hyuga Satoru who had been swallowed up by dust style, a hint of joy appeared on his face. That's great, I was hit in the front by dust style. Even you. The sound stopped suddenly, his face suddenly stiffened, as if he had seen a ghost. Enlightenment. Uchiha Rin wanted to rush over, but Aburame Jiwei suddenly appeared and stopped her. Wait, Rin, the situation seems to have changed. The moment dust style broke out, he also planned to rush over and save Hyuga Satoru. But the speed of the bug couldn't match the completed dust style, but soon, he found that something seemed wrong. He quickly stopped Uchiha Rin who was about to rush over. Under Aburame Jiwei's reminder, Uchiha Rin also regained consciousness, and the pain of being torn apart gradually subsided. After taking a closer look, he suddenly became happy. How is it possible? Onoki opened his mouth slightly, his pupils were trembling, and his eyes were full of shock and disbelief. Among the Iwa ninjas, Han and Laozi, who were still surprised, also stiffened at the same time and looked at the sky in shock. Dust style was actually blocked. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Onoki's expression was a little crazy, and his knowledge of being a ninja for decades was almost completely overturned by the scene before him. I saw Hyuga Satoru floating in midair, his body wrapped in blue lightning arcs, the lightning arcs beating in his hair, and his clothes whirring in the surging air waves. He was holding back the erupting dust style with one hand, looking down at Onoki with his cold eyes. Nothing is impossible, Onoki. As long as the control of force reaches a certain limit, the chemical bonds between material molecules can be broken down and turned into disordered atoms. Similarly, you can also use this power to block your dust style. Hyuga Satoru's cold voice echoed on the battlefield. This scene not only shocked Onoki's heart, but also almost all the ninjas on the battlefield, whether they were on the Iwa ninja side or the Konaha side. They all looked extremely shocked. Dust style can actually be blocked. Although I didn't understand what Hyuga Satoru was talking about, the scene in front of me was so shocking. Are you kidding? Dust style is the only blood successor eliminated in the ninja world. It can directly break the ninja into molecules. It is an absolute killing blow, and it is blocked so easily. Let them doubt their own eyes for a moment. Asshole. Even if dust style fails, I can still kill you. Onoki gritted his teeth and finally woke up from the shocking scene in front of him. His body slowly floated up and faced Hyuga Satoru. Whoosh. Hyuga Satoru's body disappeared. Onoki's heart seemed to be clenched tightly by big hands. His pupils shrank and he immediately used Earth Style to defend. Earth Style. Rock Fist Jutsu. A large number of rocks grew out from around his arms in the blink of an eye, and almost at the same time, a figure wrapped in lightning appeared in front of him. A heavy blow hit hard. Onoki's face suddenly distorted, and his body was smashed directly to the ground under the huge force, splashing a burst of dust. Ouch! My waist. All the rock protection on Onoki's body had been shattered, and he clutched his waist and groaned in pain. The crisp creaking sound can be clearly heard dozens of meters away. Tsuchikage-sama. Laozi and Han rushed towards Onomu almost at the same time. Han raised his head in shock and saw Hyuga looking at him indifferently. Did this fool punch him to the ground before responding to me? Laozi exited the lava armor mode and quickly supported Onoki. Old guy, are you okay? Although he and Onoki have always been at odds, there is no denying Onoki's strength. This is the first time he has seen Onoki in such a miserable state. You can't die yet. Onoki wiped the blood that spilled from the corner of his mouth and stared at Hyuga Satoru with cold eyes. I didn't expect that even though it's like this. Did I still underestimate you? Compared with before, Hyuga Satoru's momentum has changed drastically. If the previous Hyuga was like a river, then now it is the endless Yangtze River. In the air, Hyuga Satoru closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Is this what it feels like to control electromagnetic force at the atomic level? In Tyrant mode, he does not fly with the help of metal on his body, but directly steps on the magnetic field in the air. Previously in the southern forest of the Country of Fire, he used the 8 Gates armor to increase his electromagnetic power to the nanometer level. At that time, he could only drive to the 4th door. And now, he has opened the 6th door. The power of electromagnetic power increased dramatically, directly crossing the threshold of the atomic level. In the field of vision, the objects seen no longer seem to be in their basic form, but have turned into tiny atomic spheres. Then every atomic ball has various forces on each other, and as long as he is willing, he can change the forces in it. Laozi looked solemnly at the sky, overlooking their Hyuga Satoru, and took a deep breath. Old man, let's join forces. Even you, I'm afraid, can't defeat him in this state alone. He turned his head and growled at the man next to him. Han, use all the power of the tailed beasts and don't have any scruples anymore. If you lose this battle, Iwagakure village will be finished. I see. Han took a breath and his consciousness sank into his spiritual space. Kokuo, you should also understand how powerful that enemy is, right? If you want to avenge the broken horn, this is your only chance. Five Tails looked at him directly, with a hint of anger and resentment in his voice. Smash my horns and burn my skin, that fool. Han, don't worry, I will fully assist you next. On the other side, in Laozi's spiritual space. Son, I'm going to trouble you this time. Haha, Laozi, your character is still so bad, are you still unwilling to call me by my full name? I felt a familiar aura on that person, just like Uchiha Madara back then. If he is allowed to grow. Don't worry, I will do my best. The two of them opened their eyes at the same time, and their bodies suddenly swelled up, transforming into a huge tailed beast in an instant. In that case, Onoki took a deep breath and slammed his hands on the ground. Earth-style gossip-style technique. The moment he finished speaking, a huge rock giant rose up from the ground. In terms of size, it was actually a bit larger than the two-tailed beasts next to it. This is... Hyuga. Satoru frowned slightly and quickly searched for information in his memory. In the 4th grade ninja war, Onoki once used this move to block the Yasaka Magatama used by Uchiha Madara Susanoo. The defensive power of Madara is evident. Now it seems that it can not only be used for defense, but also for active offense. A fight between monsters. Hyuga. Satoru raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Just in time, I have a new Gundam that I want to try out. He slowly stretched out his palm and pointed it at the ground. He dismantled and reorganized almost all the metal particles in the earth for several kilometers. Gathered at the feet, a huge shadow falls, looking down at the 3 slightly smaller beasts below. What is that? Oh my god, what kind of monster? Tailed beast. No, tailed beasts don't have such a terrifying size. He is over 100 meters tall and looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. There is a row of metal dorsal fins on his back. Every time his huge metal tail shakes, it will sweep away a bunch of ninjas. Mechagodzilla, more powerful than the previous metal giant. Not only the size, but the pressure is also much greater. When the Iowa ninja who participated in the first war saw Mechagodzilla rising from the ground, they all opened their mouths in shock and their pupils trembled slightly. Originally, the 3 giant beasts were already quite terrifying monsters, but as soon as the violent Godzilla appeared, the tailed beasts seemed to become amiable. No, I have to help Wu. Jiraiya, who was confronting Lois, looked at the giant beast appearing on the battlefield, and his heart suddenly became extremely urgent. Judging from the current situation, Satoru seems to have used some kind of secret technique that greatly improved his strength, but no one is sure whether this secret technique can compete with Onoki and the two-tailed beasts. What's more, the stronger the effect of the secret technique, the more terrifying the side effects will be. We must not let Satoru face it alone. HMPH. Do you want to intervene in the battle over there? It's not that easy. Wangtu snorted coldly and hit Jiraiya with an earth-style ninjutsu. Next to him, several Jonin also rushed forward. If he was alone, he would naturally not be able to fight against Jiraiya, but the Iowa ninja troops, Jonin, were more numerous, which created conditions for him to stop Jiraiya. Jiraiya gritted his teeth. In this case, he would not be able to spare any effort to provide support. At this moment, a thin buzzing sound suddenly came from my ears. Dense black parasites attacked, blocking the way of the Iowa ninja. Jiraiya's pupils trembled slightly as he looked at the back figure that suddenly appeared and was wrapped in a large robe. Jiraiya-sama, go and support Satoru. As a teacher, I can only do this. Aburame Jawei controlled the parasite and made a steady voice. Well, hold on. Knowing the importance of Hyuga's enlightenment, Jiraiya nodded solemnly and immediately rushed to the battlefield on the other side. The other side of the battlefield. Several giant beasts were fighting fiercely. The 3 giant beasts surrounded Mechagodzilla in the center, staring at him with eager eyes. 5 Tails took the lead in launching the attack, steam spurting out from behind its buttocks, stepping on its hooves, and was under Godzilla in an instant. The 4 remaining horns shone coldly. Obviously he wants another slide tackle. You really don't have a long memory. Hyuga. Satoru sneered. Godzilla twisted his body, and hit 5 Tails hard with his huge metal tail, knocking its body away. A crisp creaking sound sounded. Among the 4 remaining horns on 5 Tails' head, another one was broken off. Ah! 5 Tails roared madly. The moment 5 Tails attacked, 4 Tails also moved. There was no benefit in competing with a giant beast like Mechagodzilla in physical skills. 4 Tails understands this. Lava style. Wagwoshin. His hands suddenly hit the ground, and the earth shook. At Godzilla's feet, a huge volcano steamed up, and blazing lava surged out. Hyuga. Satoru frowned slightly and controlled Godzilla to retreat, avoiding the scope of the magma. After all, it is a metal product, and things like lava pose a certain threat to him. Satoru, let me help you. Behind him, Jiraiya's shout sounded. Psychicism. Jiraiya bit his finger and slammed the ground, and Bunta's huge figure appeared in the white mist. Hey, it's Jiraiya, what's the matter with summoning me? Bunta stood proudly in the white mist with his pipe in his mouth. He was one of the strongest psychic beasts in Mount Myoboku. He was even capable of fighting a tailed beast. But when he saw the scene around him, his eyes widened and he was shocked. What's the situation? 4 giant beasts. 2 of them are tailed beasts. What is that giant metal beast? Bunta, don't be in a daze, come on. Jiraiya stood above him and shouted anxiously. Glancing around, Bunta suppressed the shock in his heart and focused his gaze on 4 tails. I don't understand what happened, but I just need to deal with this guy, right? Water style. T'Pao Jade. Wentai jumped up suddenly and spit out huge water balls from his mouth, hitting the surging magma around 4 tails, causing white steam to surge. Hateful. 4 tails stared at Bunta fiercely. His lava style is to contain Mechagodzilla, but if it is cooled down by Bunta's Teppanyama, it will lose its effect. 4 tails opened its mouth angrily and spit out blazing fireballs. Bunta jumped quickly on the battlefield, spitting out water balls, which violently collided with 4 tails fireballs. On the other side, Hyuga Satoru looked back at 4 tails. Suddenly, there was a heavy blow on Godzilla's waist, and he staggered. Hyuga Satoru turned to look, and behind him, the giant rock ninja was punching Godzilla in the waist. Did the weighted rock jutsu increase the impact? Hyuga Satoru smiled contemptuously. Onoki, as a Tsuchikage, unexpectedly attacked Godzilla's waist. Don't talk about martial ethics. Mechagodzilla turned around and punched out with the same metal punch, which directly smashed the rock giant's head into countless huge rock fragments. Onoki's pupils shrank, and he used the light and heavy rock technique to increase his speed, so as to avoid being swatted away like a fly by the huge metal arm. Chakra is continuously transported in the body, and the crushed rock head grows back. Onoki panted heavily, his eyes filled with fear. After being a ninja for so many years, he only felt this sense of oppression from one person. Uchiha Madara. When he was young, he played against Uchiha Madara many times. The battle in which he risked his life was as ridiculous as a joke in the eyes of the other party. When you are in a good mood, play more. If you are in a bad mood, just knock him down with one move. Although the current Hyuga Satoru has not grown to be as perverted as Uchiha Madara, given time, he may make the entire ninja world feel fear. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted, and there was a sudden cramping pain in his heart, as if it was about to be torn apart. What have you done? Onoki clutched his chest in shock and looked at Hyuga Satoru in horror, his eyes filled with shock and horror. It seems like it failed. Hyuga Satoru shook his head helplessly. That's fine, otherwise it would be too boring to deal with you all at once. Just now, he had a sudden idea to use electromagnetic force to control the iron ions in Onoki's blood, directly destroying his body from the inside. Unfortunately, halfway through the progress, a huge resistance suddenly came, and the connection with the iron ions was broken. It should be because of chakra, Hyuga Satoru thought. The majestic chakra in Onoki's body suppressed the abnormal movement of iron ions. However, it should be very useful for ordinary ninjas. Hyuga Satoru sneered and glanced at the densely packed Iwa ninja on the ground. Bang, bang, bang. The heads of countless rock ninjas exploded, like scarlet flowers blooming on the battlefield. Blood plasma mixed with brain fluid sputtered out and poured onto the messy battlefield. This horrifying scene stunned everyone. No, Onoki screamed, clutching his heart, and his eyes burst out with bloodshot eyes. These ninjas are the mainstay of Iwagakure village. Hyuga Satoru directly killed hundreds of Iwanans around him with just one move. Must kill you, Onoki roared crazily. The huge rock giant took huge steps and punched Godzilla hard. The other side, Five Tails, who was knocked away, shook his head and stood up. While Godzilla was fighting with the rock giant, he suddenly opened his mouth, and the black and purple chakra condensed violently. The terrifying black sphere suddenly shot towards Hyuga Satoru. Are Five Tails crazy? Within 4 tails, Laozi was suddenly shocked. The tailed beast Jade at such a distance would affect even Onoki. Unlike Han, he is a truly perfect Jinchuriki. Similar to 8 Tails Jinchuriki Killer Bee, he can maintain a clear sense of self even in his complete form. The tailed beast Jade drew a ravine in the ground and hit Hyuga Satoru heavily. Godzilla's metal tail swung and actually bounced him away. A parabola was drawn in the air and landed among the Iwa ninja troops in the distance. Boom, The mushroom cloud rose and swallowed up a large number of rock ninjas who had no time to escape. The old purple Icanthus was completely cracked, and the deflected-tailed beast Jade would cause unimaginable damage to the Iwa ninja backup troops at the rear. Four Tails roared and vented their anger on Bunta, who was so suppressed that he couldn't even breathe. Jiraiya, I've reached my limit. Wentai blocked Four Tails' attack with his long knife, gasped and gritted his teeth, facing the rough-skinned and fleshy Four Tails. His ability to hold on until now was already the limit. I understand, Mrs. Wentai, go and rest. Bang! The white mist dispersed and Wentai disappeared. Jiraiya looked at the giant beasts fighting on the other side of the battlefield with a solemn expression and murmured, Satoru, I can only do this one step, and the rest will be left to you. Retreat! Retreat! Lois, who was stopped by the swarm of insects, looked at the battlefield on the other side and roared out orders. Whether it was the terrifying head explosion before or the tailed beast Jade behind, they all caused horrific losses to the Iwa ninja troops. If this continues, the entire Iwa ninja village will be severely damaged. Retreat. Jiraiya gave the same order. Both of them have realized that the next battle is no longer something they can interfere with. In just a few moments of the battle, the ground shook, and a large number of ninjas were swallowed up, like tiny ants, being strangled mercilessly. This is a power beyond natural disasters. It is not a force that humans can contend with. The large troops are retreating, watching the horrific battle that is still breaking out. Everyone knows very well that the outcome between the four people will directly determine the outcome of this war. Woo! Uchiha Lin clenched her palms worriedly, and there were traces of sweat on her palms. Don't worry, Satoru chose to fight them alone, isn't it just to protect us? If you rush over rashly, you will only drag him down. Abarameishi's gentle voice sounded. He knew that the battle over there was no longer something they could participate in. I see. Uchiha Rin regained his previous calm expression. Even though my heart has long been tightened. But she knew very well that with her strength, if she rushed over rashly, she would not be able to help Hyuga Satoru. Staying here silently will be the best help to him. The battle between the four giant beasts continues. In other words, because the ninjas on both sides took the initiative to clear the area, the battle between them became more intense. The earth trembled and the mountains shook, and mushroom clouds rose from time to time, as if the sky was being torn apart. Onoki was breathing heavily, his heart was cramping, and beads of sweat were dripping from his forehead. Is it that weird technique again? He stared at Hyuga Satoru. Until now, during the battle, there would always be a severe cramping pain in the heart from time to time. He was forced to use chakra to suppress it. This slight distraction may be the key to life or death in a battle between strong men. Onoki is indeed as hard as stone. A hint of coldness flashed in Hyuga Satoru's eyes. In terms of combat experience, Onoki is indeed much better than him. Every blow and every technique is connected just right, especially the cooperation with the two-tailed beasts around, which is quite difficult to deal with. Some of the iron ions in the opponent's body were directed to the heart, blocking some blood vessels. This is also the main cause of Onoki's heart angina. The lack of iron ions and the blockage of heart blood vessels will definitely cause big problems in battery life. It's just that this old guy has persisted until now by virtue of his experience. Time is running out for Tyrant mode. In this case, Hyuga Satoru's eyes turned cold. Godzilla's attacks are much more ferocious. The huge metal tail suddenly swung, knocking away the two-tailed beasts surrounding it. The two forearms were placed on the shoulders of the rock giant, and suddenly dissolved into fluid, like two thick metal snakes, directly wrapping and locking the upper body of the rock giant. How can it be? Onoki's pupils shrank. Isn't this giant beast's form fixed? Hyuga Satoru gave him a cold look. Godzilla can turn into Ghidorah if he wants to. The terrifying energy surged in Godzilla's mouth, and the regrown front claws tore open the rock giant's mouth, and a blazing white light burst out, shooting directly into the rock giant's abdomen through its mouth. Godzilla. Atomic breath. This is an ability developed by Hyuga Satoru using atomic-level electromagnetic force. Compared with the ordinary atomic breath, this move is more terrifying, and can directly break all objects in contact into atoms. Mechagodzilla raised his head, and the laser in his mouth instantly destroyed the rock giant's body. The blazing laser cut across most of the plane and hit the retreating Iowa ninja troops in the distance. They were unable to even struggle. A large number of Iowa ninja were annihilated in the laser and turned into ashes and disappeared. It's a technique similar to dust style. Can an object be broken down into molecules? Onoki's pupils suddenly shrank, and he used the light and heavy rock technique to the extreme, panicking to avoid the atomic breath that passed by him. That huge rock giant, most of its body had been turned into dust by this move, completely losing the possibility of regeneration. Before the attack stopped, Hyuga Satoru took a deep breath. Then, it's the second way. Mechagodzilla turned his head sideways, spit out another atomic breath from his mouth, and the laser swept across. Onoki, who had escaped the first attack, had not recovered from the shock when he saw the second huge atomic breath sweeping towards him. What happened? I can't escape. He roared crazily, his eyes were bloodshot. He put his hands in front of him, and the white square space exploded. Dust style. Limitation stripping technique. Dust style has the ability to decompose all things. This was the first time he used dust style to defend. Seeing that Godzilla and Onoki were at a stalemate, Five Tails rushed over with another sliding shovel, hoping to launch a sneak attack. Godzilla turned his head, and his atomic breath exploded, directly cutting his body in half. No! Five Tails roared in pain. Even if the tailed beast is made of chakra, it will no longer be able to maintain its complete form after suffering such an attack, and its body will begin to dissipate. This problem with the sliding shovel cannot be corrected. Hyuga gave him a blank look. Onoki breathed hard. Godzilla pointed his head at him again and opened his mouth. The third way. Atomic breath. Ah! Unable to escape, Onoki roared crazily, mobilizing almost all the remaining chakra in his body, and the dust style in his hand burst out. Collide directly with the atomic breath. The two blazing lasers were in a terrifying stalemate. Even Uchiha Rin and the others, who had retreated several kilometers away, could clearly see the shocking scene of the confrontation. Two huge lasers were in a stalemate with each other, one erupted from Metal Godzilla's mouth, and the other was tiny and invisible. In the terrifying aftermath of the explosion, the earth shook, and dark clouds seemed to appear in the sky. Are you running out of chakra? Hyuga Satoru turned pale. Fortunately, he was prepared. The hidden energy on the back activates. At the same time, dozens of kilometers away from that battlefield, a strange figure suddenly covered his chest. The consumption is so terrible, energy is almost running out. Zero's body squirmed and turned into the shape of a combat aircraft, flying toward the highest peak nearby. In just a few breaths, he had reached the top of the mountain. It was noon, the sun was quite blazing, and the mountain peaks were filled with strong sunlight. A large number of metal particles were extracted from the mountain peak and decomposed by Zero, condensing into the appearance of solar panels. In just a few breaths, they had covered most of the mountain top. The surface of the solar panel is made of special nano-metal materials, which can convert solar energy into energy to supply it. This huge energy is converted into chakra through the core, and is continuously transported to Hyuga's body several kilometers away. Come yet, feeling the huge chakra that was suddenly delivered, Hyuga Satoru felt happy. The atomic breath sprayed from Godzilla's mouth instantly became stronger, and it directly suppressed Onoki's dust style and kept approaching him. Sorry, I'm standing on the right this time. Onoki roared crazily, and almost all the chakra rushed towards the dust style in his hand. Unfortunately, it had no effect, and the atomic breath was still getting closer and closer to him. At this moment, Hyuga Satoru suddenly felt a strong crisis coming. When he glanced at it, he saw a tailed beast jade striking towards him. Four tails. At this distance, we can only resist forcefully. Godzilla's body suddenly decomposed into a large amount of metallic liquid that enveloped him. Boom! The terrifying power exploded. Godzilla disappeared in the flames, and the atomic breath in his mouth defeated dust style at the last moment. Onoki moved his body crazily, but the atomic breath still rubbed his right arm. The pain felt like his body was being torn apart, making him almost faint. Wait until the violent explosion subsides. Tragic. It was tragic. Five Tails had exited the complete body-tailed beast transformation, and Han was struggling to get up. Only Four Tails looked the best, looking at Onoki who was panting with trembling eyes. Old thing, you. Onoki was covering his right shoulder with his left hand, panting weakly. The entire right arm had completely disappeared. I'm fine. He raised his head weakly. The smoke dissipated, and Hyuga Satoru was floating in the air, breathing heavily and with sweat on his forehead. The lightning on his body has dimmed a lot. Hey, I guess the time for your forbidden technique to improve your strength is coming soon. Onoki looked up at Hyuga Satoru with a slight smile. Four Tails looked over, a look of shock flashed in his eyes. Indeed, Hyuga Satoru's aura had become too weak. It seems that I am the final winner. Onoki laughed hoarsely. How many more times can Hyuga Satoru take action in this state? Just hold on. On their side, Four Tails suffered almost no damage and retained most of its combat effectiveness. As long as he persists until he can no longer hold on, a fully formed tailed beast will be enough to completely obliterate him. Hyuga Satoru gasped for air, sweat dripping from his forehead, and suddenly showed a playful smile. Indeed, there is not much time left in the Tyrant state. I can only use one move at most now. Is that technique called Tyrant? Onoki's eyes flickered. However, even if there is only one move, it is enough. Hyuga Satoru closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The remains of Godzilla that had been defeated by the tailed beast Jade continued to condense in front of him. Jiraiya-sama, I'm afraid something is wrong. The ninja who sensed the nervousness reported to Jiraiya. After the explosion, I felt that Master Wu's chakra was much weaker, and Four Tails' condition didn't seem to have suffered much loss. I see. Jiraiya's face was solemn. I plan to go there to support. Uchiha Rin bit her lower lip and wanted to rush over to support. The sensing ninja suddenly opened his mouth in shock. Wait a minute, there seems to be a change. Several people looked over hurriedly and opened their mouths suddenly. That is, what is that? A metal pillar. What does he want to do? Onoki looked at the rising Hyuga in shock. Below him, there was also a huge metal cylinder, rushing into the sky together. The field of vision below him continued to shrink, and together with Four Tails' huge body, it gradually turned into a black spot, leaving only the somewhat broken grassland overlooking it. Hyuga Satoru has squeezed chakra to its limit. On Zero's side, energy is continuously converted into chakra, which is continuously delivered. The cold wind gradually became stronger, causing his body to tingle. After flying approximately 9,000 meters, Hyuga Satoru felt that he had vaguely touched the stratosphere and had reached the limit of what he could bear. With the electromagnetic force exerted to its extreme, it didn't take long to fly into the air. That's almost enough. Onoki, are you ready to bear the wrath of my final blow? He stared down indifferently. The huge chakra of Four Tails can also be clearly felt at this location. Has entered the launch orbit. God's scepter is being filled. Filling completed. Accelerating magnetic field layout. The geostrophic deflection force is being calculated. Gravitational acceleration is being calculated. Target locked. Locked. The scepter of the gods. Emission. Hyuga Satoru roared. This is my final blow, Onoki. On the ground, Onoki was still looking at the sky in astonishment. Did you run away? No, why did you have to carry such a big metal pillar with you when you ran away? He couldn't figure it out. But if Hyuga Satoru really escaped, it would be a good thing. The remaining combat power should be able to encircle and destroy the remaining Konaha troops. If you look at it this way, it's still me, Iwagakure. What is that? Onoki raised his head dully. At the far end of the sky, a pillar like a meteorite was wrapped in flames and was constantly falling towards here. The target should be us. It seems like this is his so-called final blow. Laozi's voice sounded through Four Tails. He quickly looked at Onoki and shouted. Old guy, run away. Four Tails and I will stop this move. No, as a Tsuchikage, how could I abandon my subordinates and run away on my own? Old thing. Laozi's roaring voice exploded in his ears, causing him to fall into a brief state of astonishment. I, Laozi, have never begged you in my life. Today, I beg you for the only time, run away. You are Tsuchikage. If even you die, Iwagakure village will really be finished. Onoki was sluggish, and his only remaining arm was hanging down weakly. Han, you are the fastest, take Tsuchikage back. I see. Han took a deep breath, picked up Onoki and put it on his shoulders. The steam pushed the blessing and ran towards the distance. Laozi took a deep breath and showed a faint smile. In the spiritual space, his slightly apologetic voice sounded. I'm sorry, son. I want you to come and rear with me in the end. Haha, Laozi, I didn't expect that a stinky stone like you could speak so gently. Let's see how powerful his final blow is. Four Tails suddenly opened his mouth, and the tailed beast gem charged up its power very quickly. It was as big as most of his body, far exceeding any previous tailed beast gem. The best material for space-based kinetic energy weapons is tungsten, which has high density and high melting point. Although the metal cylinder that Hyuga Satoru condensed is not tungsten, it uses electromagnetic force to compress the atomic gap. In terms of density and ignition point, it is definitely no worse than tungsten. The acceleration of the electromagnetic field combined with the capture of the Earth's weight makes it go faster than the speed of sound. Suffer it. Four Tails' eyes narrowed. The tailed beast Jade didn't even have time to release it before the God's scepter arrived. The terrifying power exploded, and everything returned to peace and destruction. Han's speed had increased to the extreme, but he was still hit by the incoming air wave and flew high. Even though he was several kilometers away, Uchiha Rin saw the terrifying explosion. The previous tailed beast Jade also seemed a little small in such an attack. Enlightenment. She roared with all her strength and wanted to rush over. A few seconds later, the shock wave caused by the explosion arrived, lifting her body directly and hitting the ground heavily. The Konaha ninjas subconsciously protected their bodies to resist the impact of the air waves. The thin ninja was even knocked down directly. Uchiha Rin struggled to get up from the ground. Her ears were temporarily deafened by the impact, leaving only a constant buzzing sound. Rin, don't go there, it's too dangerous. Aburame Jawei wanted to stop her. Uchiha Rin turned around, his face soaked with tears, and in his scarlet eyes, 3 black magatama twisted and rotated, turning into the shape of 3 black petals. Step aside. Her voice was cold. Aburame Jawei's body froze in place. That is, in this short moment of distraction, Uchiha Rin had already rushed to the place where the God's scepter fell. She ran desperately on the broken grassland, and the location of the battle had turned into a deep crater. Woo! Crystal liquid flows continuously from her petal-like Sharingan. She saw a figure falling from a high altitude above the crater, and rushed over without any hesitation. Hyuga Satoru's body just fell straight from the sky. On the forehead, there seems to be something black that is constantly decomposing and peeling off, turning into black smoke and dissipating. A figure suddenly jumped up and caught him firmly. Enlightenment. The pair of Sharingans intertwined into petal patterns seemed to have a scarlet light flashing past. His right eye moved slightly, and red light covered Hyuga Satoru's body. Wait, Rin. Hyuga Satoru, who was resting on Uchiha Rin's lap, smiled weakly at her. I'm not dead yet, I'm just too tired. Uchiha was stunned for a moment, and happily wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, then buried his face directly in Hyuga Satoru's arms and hugged him tightly. Unstoppable crying. Idiot, idiot, idiot. Satoru, you idiot. Ouch, it hurts me so much. Rin, please be gentle. Hyuga Satoru struggled and stretched out an arm from Uchiha Rin's chest, shouting in pain. Uchiha Rin's cries echoed constantly in the deep pit like a meteorite falling. Konaha 48 years. Onoki and 2 Jinchuriki led more than 8,000 rock ninjas to fight Konaha in the northern plains of Grass Country. That day, whether it was the Fire Country in the south of the Grass Country, the Rain Country in the west, the Taki Country in the east, the Iron Country, or most of the Earth Country, they all saw the flaming meteor falling from the sky. In this battle, 4 Tails Jinchuriki died, and Onoki was left with only one arm. Shortly after returning to the village, he announced his abdication, and his eldest son Wangtu succeeded him as the new 4th Tsuchikage. During this battle, the name of the Tyrant resounded throughout the ninja world, and he was called by countless ninjas the man closest to the god of ninja. During this battle, a deep pit hundreds of meters deep appeared in the northern plain of the Land of Grass. During the subsequent rainfall, it gradually evolved into a lake. Because of its special origin, it was called by later generations of ninjas the place where meteors fall. Volume 1 is end here. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.